Hi everyone, welcome to our very first virtual .NET Oxford. So this is, I hope everyone's keeping well. This is our first virtual meetup. First time we're using Zoom, so it's going to be very, very experimental. My Sky internet is quite dodgy, so if it breaks up, Matt's going to tell some jokes while I switch over to my MiFi device, which is here. So hopefully this is my backup. So
I'll say sorry now in case, because I haven't prepped any jokes. They'd possibly all be filthy. So
no, that's fine. That's fine. Everyone's adults, I think. No, we're not. No, we're not. So, given that the location's not an issue anymore, so people don't have to attend .NET actually get to it, then I'm guessing we've got quite a different audience. So I'm going to start off just by reintroducing myself, and Matt will introduce himself, and I'll talk about .NET Oxford, what it's all about. So myself, I'm an independent contractor, developer, developing for 20 odd years. The first half has been more in the games industry, doing CNC plus. The second half, someone got the, Matt, can you just mute everyone? Cool. There was some feedback though. So the second half has been more like .NET, focusing on desktop, web, and cloud stuff. Everstack, one of the sponsors, is my company. I'll talk more about Everstack when we get to the sponsor section. And Draken on Twitter. So my DMs are open, so feel free to reach out. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Now I'm going to pass over to Matt to introduce himself. I don't know whether I need to spotlight you or maybe just talk. I'll try spotlighting you too.
Well, I have no idea what that means, so I'm going to mute everyone else, and then it's cool. So, for those of you who don't know my cheery face, I'm not really into acid trance. It's just a nice bright coloured backdrop. I'm the senior technical architect at Ridgeway in Whitney, doing a lot of web stuff. I've been doing .NET for many years. I kind of help Dan out. I'm like the monkey boy who helps Dan out pretty much here. I'm also Kentico MVP, so it's just a CMS platform that I do a hell of a lot of work with. Yeah, that's kind of me. Dan, back to you. I don't know what I need to do. Unmute Dan. Dan? Dan's gone quiet.
I think I was unmuting myself at the same time as you were, so we had a bit of a...
It's kind of the standard thing that I would do is click a button that you're clicking. Yep.
Yeah, we had a bit of a merge conflict, or
so it rebased the entire conversation,
or threading issues. So let me stop you from being cancel spotlight. So I don't know whether that brings me back to the front. No, I think you need to make me spotlight now. It's a bit weird.
Right, cool. So we really should have practiced this because I have no idea how to make you the spotlight.
Oh, don't worry. I'll just talk. Okay, so .NET Oxford then. So .NET Oxford has been around for over 3 years, and we have monthly meetups, and it's grown into quite a big community in Oxfordshire. There's quite a few faces I recognise, so we've got lots of our regulars here anyway. It's not just .NET though; it's anything of interest to a .NET developer. So we cover stuff like Azure, Docker, Kubernetes, Git. Can you still see the slides, by the way? I just want to make sure I'm sharing.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
And we have quite a few different social presences too. So I thought I'd just go through these. So obviously Meetup, everyone should know about that because hopefully everyone's RSVP'd, and you wouldn't have got the link if you hadn't have RSVP'd. And this is the place to go to know about upcoming events. And Twitter, this is our most used social presence. All announcements get tweeted there. And yeah, this is the one to follow if you use Twitter. Facebook, we do have a Facebook account. I need to get better at posting on here, but I will try and do it more often. It's a private group just to avoid anything people post on there appearing in people's personal Facebook feeds. We've got a Slack, and I think, Matt, are you posting links into the chat channel?
I'm posting the ones I can find, so it's all good. I did send some to Tom Dutton privately. He's probably
and so so basically Digital Oxford has got a Slack group based in Oxford, which has got a whole bunch of user groups in there. So there's lots of different chats going on there. We have a room channel .NET Oxford. So it'd be good to get more people in there, get some more conversations going. And this URL, which I think Matt's posted in the chat channel, that's how you join up. We also have a website, .NETOxford.com. So this has got basically this is the meetup notes, where we publish the meetup notes. We call them show notes, like similar to podcasts. And this contains speaker slides, photos, embedded videos of all our past meetups. I used to do quite in-depth blog posts. I don't do them anymore. But for the older meetups, there's links to those there. And the tag cloud is actually really useful because the tag cloud lets you see past topics we've covered and drill down on them. So that's quite good. We've also got a sister user group. So this is newish. This was started last year. So .NET Oxford is run by myself and Matt Neal. Azure Oxford is run by myself and James World, who I think is here. And this is currently on hold because of the coronavirus. If tonight's successful, we might consider doing the same virtual event for Azure Oxford. We've not yet discussed it, but that's a possibility. And Azure Oxford also has a website, azureoxford.com. Pardon me. This is using the same technology. It's the same format as the .NET Oxford website. So Zoom. So obviously we've decided to use Zoom. I don't know how many people have used Zoom before, so I'm going to go through a few key points about Zoom, just so everyone's comfortable with how to use it. So there's a term Zoom bombing, which if you've not heard of, it's basically where event organizers have posted a private the invite link publicly, and then unwanted guests jump into the meeting, disrupt the event, showing decent material over webcams or screen sharing, that kind of thing. And this is the reason why I put the public link in an email to everyone, and I've not met, only people at RSVP'd have been able to see this public link, so the invite link. And there's a whole bunch of Zoom features that we've disabled to actually just mitigate against this. So for example, non-hosts can't screen share, that kind of thing. If you do see any inappropriate behavior, please let myself, Matt, or one of the Cricklo staff know. All the Cricklo staff have the Cricklo logo on their profile picture, and their names begin with Cricklo, so feel free to reach out to them. So this is the UI, which you can probably see now, except this screenshot hasn't got a whole bunch of people. And so if you move the mouse, you get this toolbar on the bottom. This mute button, obviously. So whilst Mark's doing the main talk, please make sure your mics are muted, because as you saw before, there can be lots of background feedback noise. It just gets in the way. There's a great tip which Jess from Cricklo told me about a few days ago, which I didn't know about. But if you hold down the space key while you're muted, it will temporarily unmute you. So if you want to, if you just want to ask a question quickly, and we'll talk more about asking questions shortly, but it's just a good tip that you can hold down space to talk and then let go, and then it mutes you again. Then the next, so to start the video, you can press this button. I really want to encourage as many people, and I can see already that most people are quite good with this, to turn on your webcams. I really want these events to feel as much as possible like a physical meetup. I know it's virtual, but I don't want it to feel like people are watching just a recorded YouTube video. One of the key reasons for our physical meetups is that people are mingling, getting to know each other and chatting like we were doing before we started. So the best way of that is if you can turn your webcam on. And while Mark's doing his talk, he doesn't want to talk to a faceless webcam or a blank wall behind him. So it's just, it's obviously optional, but the more people that can turn the webcams on, the better. If you click on this button, it goes a list of participants on the top right. Obviously not many people in my screenshot because it was a temporary meeting. But here, so if you right click and do chat, you can do private chats if you see a mate in there. And then click on chat. This is the group chat window. So this is where Matt's been posting links in there, and we'll be posting links to the news items. And then just if you've got a question that doesn't warrant interrupting Mark, then you just shove all the questions in here. If you want to leave the meeting, hopefully you don't till the end, but you've got this button here, so it's a lot easier to exit than Vim. And then up here, you've got this panel here where you can basically give feedback without actually interrupting the speaker. So you've got you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question. I don't know how obvious that is to Mark, but we'll see how that works. And then if you do the more drop down, I think that's got things like thumbs up and thumbs down, that kind of reaction. So those are worth using. And if you want to change your wallpaper, now it turns out I didn't realize this at the time, but if I just go back, the start video, that up arrow, so that up arrow, you can actually change it from there as well. I didn't realize this when I took these screenshots. But if you go to the settings, click this cog, then you get this ignore my dodgy grin. You get this virtual background, and then you can change your virtual backgrounds. I can see that a lot of people have changed it anyway. So if you want to play around with virtual backgrounds, you can click that plus arrow and upload your own. You can upload videos or like animated backgrounds or just still backgrounds. You can see I've been playing around with a wallpaper for the pub later. Breakout rooms. So this is an experiment. I'm going to try this in the break. So in the break in the middle, Mark, I forgot to mention, but about 8 o'clock, just after 8, can you stop for a 10-minute break? And I meant to remind you earlier, but I forgot. So we're going to stop for a 10-minute break, and we're going to trial out this breakout rooms functionality. And this is basically, I click on a button, and it basically splits everyone into much smaller breakout rooms. I thought it was interesting. In the start, before we started, everyone seemed to be chatting in the main room quite well. So maybe it's not an issue having such a big room, but we thought we'd just try it so everyone's can, almost simulating a real event where people are in little groups having chats in the break. So basically this splits everyone out into smaller rooms. You don't have to join. You'll get a notification saying join breakout room. You don't have to. If you don't join, you'll stay in the main meeting room, this meeting room, and you can leave at any point and you can rejoin. You can rejoin that breakout room. Zoom will randomly assign people to a breakout room, so I've not predetermined this. It's just completely random. So I'll probably go for about 5 people per room. But it'd be great to get your feedback to how this actually, whether this worked or whether you prefer just having a main chat room. It's an experiment basically. If Mark can stay in the main room, so any questions for the speaker, because this quite often happens in real events, people want to ask the speaker questions, so then leave your breakout room and join the main room. So if Mark can stay in the main room, that's probably the place to ask him questions. And that's breakout rooms. So sponsors. So we've got a couple of sponsors, and by far our primary sponsor is Curricular Recruitment. And there's a lot of the gang in the meetup room I mentioned before. In the participant channel, you'll see all the Curricular staff. Their names begin with Curricular. So it's Curricular - Dan, Megan, that kind of thing. And I think they've got their profile picture set to this logo as well. So they've been sponsoring .NET Docs for over 3 years now. And they've also sponsored Agile Oxford, which started last year. So that's 2 meetups a month. They've been paying for the venue every time, providing lots of drinks and refreshments. So they've just been absolutely amazing. And they've been helping us out behind the scenes with just marketing, promotion, ideas and suggestions, that kind of thing. So they really are a core part of the .NET Oxford team. So just before the break, Megan, who's in the slide there, and she was talking earlier, she's going to do a 10-minute lightning talk on how COVID-19 has affected the job market, which is obviously quite relevant to a lot of people now. Everstack is my company, so we do web, desktop, mobile development and consultation. Now currently available to take on projects. So if you do have any requirements, do get in touch with me, or if you need the contractor, i.e. me, then get in touch. And then we've got our prize draw sponsors, JetBrains and Manning. So we've got 2 JetBrains licenses to give away and 1 Manning ebook, and I'll talk about that in a sec. So news sections, we've got quite a few news items, and I'm going to speed through them. Matt's going to be posting links to the items in the main group channel. So the first one, the first few actually are quite GitHub oriented. So this is a big one. GitHub is now free for teams. So this is private repositories, unlimited collaborators, which is quite amazing. So that's a recent announcement. And this is all of the GitHub features now free for everyone. GitHub Mobile is now available. So this is mobile and Android and iOS. I've been using it and it's really good. It's a long time coming because we should have had it a long time ago, but this is actually here and it's pretty good. And GitHub has now acquired NPM, the Node Package Manager. JetBrains, so they've got a .NET Day, which is on the 14th of May, and they've got a call for speakers open. So I think Matt's posting the links in the chat channel. So if you're interested in doing a talk or just attending, then definitely check that out. I
am posting, they are there.
Fantastic. And .NET Conf, so every so often, and they do mini conferences. So a few months ago, they had a focus on Blazor, and then recently on March the 23rd, they had a focus on Xamarin mini conference. And these have been published to YouTube, so all the videos are on YouTube, so that's worth checking out. dark mode. So you've probably all seen this. Stack Overflow has finally got dark mode, which made my day, because with light mode I get headaches, so I try and dark mode all the things. So this made me very happy. They actually wrote a blog post, which I think Matt's pasting in, explaining how they implemented all this as well. Unity 3D, so their training site they've started doing 3 months free access to Unity Learn Premium. So Unity is a games engine where the primary scripting language is C#. So it might actually be worth us having someone in doing a talk on Unity, because it's quite an interesting topic, and obviously it's on topic. But yeah, so if you want to learn that, you got 3 months premium free, which is quite good. Azure Global Virtual Bootcamp. So this is the Azure Global Conference was cancelled due to the coronavirus, like lots of other conferences. But in its place, a few community people started planning online virtual events. So there's a couple of events going on, and it's all under the same branding. So this is actually Thursday, Friday, Saturday this week as a community event. There's a global one and a UK and Ireland one. So I'll put the 2 links here, and they'll be in the chat window. This is going to be hosted on YouTube. So it's definitely worth checking out. Lots and lots of great Azure topic. Microsoft Ignite was announced. This is going to be virtual. So this is in September. Normally it's a physical event. This is going to be a virtual event. And then the last one, I think, of the news items, not really a news item, I just thought this was quite interesting. So I saw on Twitter that in the latest Windows 10 Insider build, they've added the WSL Linux node into the Windows Explorer and the File Explorer. Sorry, so that's quite interesting. How Microsoft are really embracing Linux. Okay, so prize draws. So we use a WPF prize draw that I wrote about 3 years ago, and this basically. Our regulars will know this one. It pulls all the attendees in from meetup.com, meetup.com API, i.e. everyone that's RSVP'd. I've recently written a Zoom integration into it, so hopefully if this works, this is the first time we're going to be trying this, so it might fail drastically. But it's going to pull everyone that's in this meeting into the prize draw app, and we'll see if that works. Unfortunately, the Zoom API required that I needed a business tier of the Zoom account, but their webhooks work. So I couldn't make REST API calls to get at the people in the meeting, but I can hook into the webhooks. So I went for this kind of architecture where I've got the Zoom webhooks going to Azure Functions, and then Azure Functions. So when someone leaves someone joins and leaves the meeting, it pops a row into Azure Table Storage, and then that's what the prize draw reads from. So it was a bit of a hack, but it works quite well, and it seems to work well. Hopefully it works. I wrote a blog post about how I implemented this in case anyone was interested. Sadly, I can't pull profile pictures, so it's not going to be the usual experience where you can see people's profile pictures zooming around. It's just going to show people's names. But I thought it's really interesting with Azure Functions, because Azure Table Storage is a native output, that the Azure function to do this was pretty much just that. So it's just like, I just love the way that with Azure Functions you can just plug things together and make it really clean. It just makes a big difference without having to have all this extra code around. But the blog post goes into more detail. So first prize draw sponsor JetBrains. So I'm sure you've all heard of JetBrains. They do fantastic developer tooling, and the winner we're going to do 2 draws for this. The winner of this one can choose any JetBrains product they want. The most popular is Rider and ReSharper combined, because that's a combined product or combined package. I use Rider very heavily and I love it, so I'd really recommend getting both Rider and ReSharper. The second prize draw is Manning Publications. So the winner gets any of their ebooks they want. And any of our members can use this coupon code. Maybe, Matt, can you pop that in the chat? And get 36% off .NET Oxford. Off any of their ebooks. Right, so this is the moment of truth. Let's see if I open it now, it should be pulling from Azure Table Storage. And hopefully that's everyone. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Cool. So let's let's see if this works. So this first one is going to be for the first JetBrains license. I don't know about latency. Can you see that moving around? And then is Tatenda here? Oh, obviously you are here. So I should point out, so this is for the first JetBrains license. Obviously, like with this, I don't have, with meetup.com API, I've got access to your meetup ID, so I can send you a message with the prize draw details. In this, I don't. So if you do win a prize, can you reach out to me so we can sort it rather than I want me to reach out to you? So then this one is for the second JetBrains license. Good name. So congratulations, Dan. That's for the second JetBrains license. And then finally, for the Manning ebook. This is so much easier when people, all the winners are definitely in the room. With the meetup.com API, it would pick up no-shows, which was a bit of a pain. And congratulations, John. So that's for the Manning ebook.
Excuse me, Dan, do you want to do the second draw again? I'm one of the guys from Curriculo. I might be better used for someone
else. Sure. Okay, so this one is for the second JetBrains license then. Thanks, Dan. Right, congratulations, Roland. That's for the other JetBrains license. So as I say, if you can reach out to me because I don't have your contact details.
Awesome, Dan. I think I should do my one as well because I'm part of the Curriculo guys, and I think it would be better used for one of the other lot.
Oh, okay, so which
making up the no-shows?
Tatenda.
Which one? Which prize did you win?
It was second row.
I know.
JetBrains #1, Dan.
Okay, cool. Another JetBrains then. I know Stuart Lang's here.
I do go again. Sorry, Dan. I've already got one, and I'd rather it went to somebody who needed it. Sorry.
Fair enough. I thought you might say that. You've probably got thousands of them.
We so thought we were safe for this.
I know. Is Joe here?
Oh, yes, I am.
Oh, congratulations. So,
oh, thanks.
There we go.
Just to confirm, you don't work for Curriculo, do you?
Sorry?
No, it's fine.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations to all the winners. As I say, like if you reach out to me and let me know, and then I will tell you how to claim your prize. Right. So, upcoming events. We're almost done. Sorry to rabbit on for so long. So, upcoming events. So this is not us. This is not our event. This is Steve Gordon's in the meeting now. He runs .NET Southeast, which is normally based in Brighton, and tomorrow is going to be their first attempt at a virtual meetup. So they've got Roland talking about Blazor, so this should be quite good. I'm going to be attending this as well, so it'd be great to see you there. But as I say, Steve Gordon's here, so any questions, just reach out to him during the break. Lightning Talk, so probably the 19th of May. We've not announced this yet. We're going to have a .NET Oxford Lightning Talk event. We've got opening a call for speakers, so if you do want to do a talk, then do let us know. Also for Azure Oxford, I need to discuss with James whether it's worth having a virtual Azure Oxford event. But if you do want to do an Azure talk, let us know anyway. So we normally do like 5, 10, 15-minute slots. If you do want to do one, these are great for first-time speakers, then just reach out and let us know the topic and how long you like. Right, so I mentioned on Twitter last week that I had some exciting news, so it was a bit of a tease, I know. But without further ado, I'm very excited to announce that in June, we are going to be joined by Mr. Scott Hanselman, which was quite amazing news. I've got no idea what he's going to talk about or what date it is. I just know it's sometime in June, but I'll announce it as in who cares what he's talking about. It's Scott Hanselman, so that's quite exciting. But before that, and equally as exciting, I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to Mark Rendle's talk, talking all about Roslyn. Basically, I'm going to hand over now, and according to his bio, his interests are collecting jars of dark matter, high altitude scuba diving, and Making Up Stupid Hobbies. Thanks, Mark. He's the author of Visual Recode, which I'm sure he'll tell you all about. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. And yeah, I'm going to show you how to write code that writes code with Roslyn. I have been doing this for a very long time. If you're under 30, I've been doing this professionally since before you were born. Writing code, that is, not necessarily speaking at online user groups. And my most recent project that I've been working on is Visual Recode, and whilst working on that, I have learned all sorts of stuff about Roslyn, and so that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. If you want to reach out to me offline, then you can get me on Twitter at Mark Rendle, or you could email me, mark@gibraltarsoftware.com. Gibraltar Software is actually an American company that sell the Loop exception logging and metrics system, and also VistaDB. And I've partnered with them. They're doing all the sales, marketing, and support for Visual Recode so that I don't have to. That's my dog barking in the background. So, yes. What is Roslyn? Beyond being where the squiggles come from in Visual Studio, although it is these days where the squiggles come from in Visual Studio, unless you've got ReSharper, in which case it's not. But Roslyn it's everything. It's the C# and VB.NET compiler platform. So it is the thing that reads the text and turns it into tokens and creates an abstract syntax tree, and then everything right the way through to turning that into MSIL, putting it into assemblies ready for the CLR to load it and execute it. But it is also a whole load of APIs that you can use to read code, understand code, without having to hurt your brain trying to learn Antler or parser combinators or any of that sort of thing. It's written almost entirely in the languages that it is compiling. So the C# components for Roslyn are written in C#, and I don't know if this is still true, but the VB.NET components were written in VB.NET. I don't know if they've kept that going, but the idea was that these would be self-hosting languages. My experience with it comes from writing Visual Recode, which is an application where you have a .NET 4 application, and at the moment it's targeting WCF applications, and it reads all the code in your WCF application, and it finds your service contracts by looking for classes that have the service contract attribute or interfaces, and going through and finding all the dependencies and everything, and it analyzes those and then generates the equivalent gRPC code and copies all the necessary code across, and it tries to be quite clever about it and apply some optimizations while it's doing it and that sort of thing. And this all runs in a Visual Studio plugin. It's working with Visual Studio's workspace, and we'll get onto that in a little while. But yeah, so everything that I'm showing you today, I've learned over the course of the last year while I've been writing this product. So let's just jump straight into it and talk about how to Roslyn. I'm going to start off by showing you just some examples in a console application to keep things nice and simple. And then at the end of the talk, I will push that solution up to a GitHub repository and share it, and then .NET Oxford can tweet it out and you guys can download it and play with it. And then right at the end, we'll take a look at an analyzer, because the other thing that Roslyn allows you to do is write your own analyzers to run in Visual Studio. They'll also work in Rider and VS Code to put your own green squigglies in, and to add your own control dot or alt enter and fix whatever the problem is. That's quite complicated, so I've got a separate project for that, which is also on GitHub that you can download and have a look at. So, to create a console application with Roslyn for C# code, you're going to need these 4 NuGet packages. The indented ones are the packages that they depend on. So you can see where those are. So for C#, the most important one is Microsoft Code Analysis C# Workspaces. That allows you to work with C# code that is part of a project, that is part of a solution that is contained in a workspace. That includes all the C# syntax analyzers and everything else. There's also the Microsoft Code Analysis Workspaces MS Build package, and that is the package that allows Roslyn to work with CSproj files and SLN files and deal with the whole project system. And then 2, that it will quite happily let you build your application and run it, and then it will just generate errors very quietly if you don't have the last 2 NuGet packages here. Microsoft Build Locator finds the relevant version of Microsoft Build where it is installed on your machine. So if you're working with a .NET 4 point something application, it will go and get that from the Visual Studio installation directory, like Visual Studio 2019 Common 7 or whatever it is. If you're working with a .NET Core SDK project, it will point to the build bin directory for that particular .NET Core SDK. And NuGet.project model allows it to resolve project references to NuGet packages. So we'll see later on, we'll be looking at semi-compiled code, so what the code actually means and whether a type is an interface or a class or a struct or an enum. And so to work with packages that have been loaded from NuGet, you need the NuGet.project model in there. Importantly, for .NET Core 3 or .NET Core anything, you need NuGet.project model because system.runtime, or the framework itself, is actually coming from a NuGet package somewhere on your machine. And so if you don't have NuGet.project model, your code will not be able to understand .NET Core projects. So that's fun. And every time I start a new project, I forget it again, that last one. So there we go. So workspaces, the fundamental unit of the sort of top level unit. So when you're in Visual Studio, you have your Solution Explorer, and your Solution Explorer has the solution, and then nested under that, it has projects, and then nested under the projects, you have documents. And Roslyn has essentially the same view, but workspace, essentially it means the Visual Studio session that you're running. You can think of it like that. So the Visual Studio session contains the solution. So we have 3 types of workspace that are available to us. An ad hoc workspace is for working in memory, and it's quite complicated to work with, but it's incredibly useful for testing. So if you want to write unit tests against your application, then you use an ad hoc workspace, so you don't have to have a directory on disk, which means you can run things in CI and everything else. And this is appearing a bit at a time. I'm still getting used to presenting with all 4 of my screens. It's new and interesting. I'm used to just having the one laptop screen, but I've got 4 monitors on the go. And you're all down on a little one down here, by the way. So down there. So yes, ad hoc workspace, very useful for testing. More useful for actually working with real projects is MS Build Workspace. So that allows you to open a solution and then work with a solution. And if you're working in Visual Studio, it will give you a Visual Studio workspace. So that's sort of internal constructors. You can't create it yourself, but it will give you a workspace that represents the current Visual Studio session. And then inside that workspace, we have a current solution, and it can only have one current solution at a time, in the same way that Visual Studio can only have one solution open at a time. And then that solution has a list of projects, and each project has a list of documents, and you can navigate through the code like that. So I'm going to find my Roslyn demo here, and we can see the start of a console application here. Now, normally I would be at the front of the room and there would be people way down the back, and I would be going, how big do you need this font? You're all sitting somewhere, but if anybody is watching on a phone or an iPad and this code is way too small to see, please let me know and I will make it a bit bigger.
I'm finding my old eyes are finding that quite tiny, actually.
All right, let's make it a bit bigger.
Sorry.
No, it's no problem. Settings, 16. How's that?
That's
Yeah?
beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, yes, starting from the top, because it's the best place to start. So you can see that I've got my 4 NuGet packages installed here: Build Locator, C# Workspaces, Workspaces MS Build, and NuGet Project Model. And the first thing I do is msBuildLocator.register defaults, which is exactly the kind of evil, side effect ridden static method that we're told never, ever, ever to use. But use this one because it's brilliant, and you then don't have to worry about where system.runtime and mscorelib and Microsoft, the actual build executable are. And then we're going to create a workspace using a static create method on msBuild workspace. And then we're going to tell it to load metadata for referenced projects, which says if a project is referenced by the thing we're looking at and you've got an assembly for that project, then use that for the metadata rather than going to all the trouble of analyzing the code and everything else. And then we can just say solution equals workspace.openSolutionAsync, and we're just taking args 0 for that. The solution that we're going to be working with for this project is this little test project thing here, which has just got a class program. It's got a diagnostics listener, which we will come back to later. And it's got a couple of classes in there just so that we can do interesting things with it. So we have got our workspace configured. We've got our MS Build in Locator installed. We've registered the defaults. We've created our MS Build workspace. And now it is time to start looking at syntax trees. So syntax trees are the kind of lowest level thing in Roslyn. And it loads a lump of text into memory, tokenizes it, does all the things that a parser does, and then produces a syntax tree. And there are 4 main types within the syntax tree. You've got the top level thing, syntax tree. This is what a document contains. And a syntax tree is made up of syntax nodes, which makes sense. And syntax nodes can be hundreds of different things. There are many, many different kinds of syntax nodes. We also have syntax tokens, and a syntax token is something like an if statement or an if keyword, things that are not things that actually the smallest possible units of syntax is syntax tokens. But syntax tokens are only things that actually mean something to the C# compiler. For things that are in the text that don't mean anything to the C# compiler, we have syntax trivia. And that's things like white space, including new lines, curly braces, comments, all that sort of thing go in as syntax trivia. And each syntax node and syntax token can have leading and trailing trivia. So if it's indented 8 spaces, it will have leading trivia of white space 8 characters and trailing trivia of environment.newline. Okay. It's an absolute nightmare trying to get your head around syntax trees to start off with. There are a lot of different types in there, and to make life easier and to give you a visual representation that you can just get from some code, Microsoft built a thing called the Syntax Visualizer into Visual Studio, which you can get from the View Other Windows if you have the Visual Studio SDK components installed. If you don't have that, then you should go and install them, because working with Roslyn is going to be a nightmare without that. So you can see on this little screen grab, we have a simple member access expression which contains an invocation expression which contains another simple member access expression, and we have identifier names and then dots. Those are tokens. Operators are tokens. There are lists and all sorts of other things in there. And you can use that. So if you want to, you write a sample of the kind of code you want to be working with, and then you can open up the syntax visualizer, and as you click on the code, it will actually jump around. I've got this here. So you can see as I click around the code, it actually jumps. So it's quite a lot like the WPF sort of thing that tracks the thing that you've clicked on, or the web developer view where you can select elements and it highlights them in the source view. So yes, that's incredibly helpful for getting your head around. So if I do host.createDefaultBuilder, what's that doing, and what's this simple member access expression, and what's this one? And so yes, great way to familiarize yourself with Roslyn and with the syntax trees. And once you've got your head around it, then you can start worrying about actually jumping around the syntax and understanding what is going on. So there are multiple ways to do this, and I'm going to demonstrate several of them, but we're going to start off with, it's like a link API. So a syntax node has a descendant nodes method, which returns an IEnumerable of all the nodes below that node in the hierarchy. It also has a child nodes, which returns just the nodes that are direct children of that node. So descendant gets you everything underneath. Descendant nodes is the most useful one. And we can move back up the hierarchy with things like first ancestor or self, and you can also do ancestors, which will return the list of that node's ancestors in the tree. Right, so let's go to await syntax query demo.list async, and we'll jump in here, and we have a not implemented exception because I haven't written it yet. So what we're going to do in here, we've got our solution passed in, and so we're going to say for each solution.projects.select many p to p.documents, and so that is going to give us a document. And then we're going to get the root node from this document's syntax tree. And we do that, we can say var root equals await document.get syntax root async. There's a lot of asynchronous stuff in here, and you should use them as much as possible. Quite a lot of these things have a sort of try get, which will return it if it's already been built and cached. And if performance is incredibly important, then you can say if not try get, then do the await. But for my purposes, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to say if root is null, continue, because not all documents have a syntax root. Not all documents have a syntax tree. A document might be an XML file. It might be all sorts of different things. So we want to check to make sure that's actually got something in it. And then we can say for each root.descendantnodes.ofType. And what we're doing here is we're just going to list all the types in a solution, and we're going to print them out, all the declared types in a solution, and we're just going to print them out to the console. So we're going to look for type declarations. No, we're not going to look for base type declaration syntax. And we'll just call that type declaration syntax. So base type declaration syntax has a descendant class called type declaration syntax, and class interface and struct declaration syntaxes that inherit from that. But for some reason, there's also an enum declaration syntax, and that inherits directly from base type declaration syntax, because it can't have the same set of properties and fields and everything else, and enum only has fields. So by getting base type declaration syntax, we can see enum declarations as well. Now I could have dozens of things in a project, all with the same name, just in different namespaces, because I'm a terrible programmer and I do things like that. So I want to find out the namespace for each of these things as well. So I can get the namespace declaration syntax by saying type declaration syntax dot first ancestor or self, and for this I can just directly pass in namespace declaration syntax like that. Okay. There is no just first ancestor. It has to be first ancestor or self. So that's why it's not going to be self, because this is not a namespace declaration, but there isn't a method with a different name. So now I can get the type name by saying type declaration syntax dot identifier. So identifier is the syntax token that represents this. So in a class declaration, this would be the word after class. So identifier, and then I can just say text to get the string out of that. And then to get the namespace name, it's slightly different, because of course it is. So namespace name is going to be namespace declaration syntax. This could be null, because you could be like some people out there who do not put their types in namespaces, and apparently that's okay. So we're going to put the null check dereference on there, and then we're going to say name dot to string. So name here is name syntax. We can't get an identifier out of that, because name syntax could be multiply dotted things, so it's not a single token. So we get the name out of there, which will give us all the dotted parts of the namespace at the same time, and then we can just say console.writeLine $, and then we can put namespace name dot type name, and then if I run this and get all sorts of method warnings and things, and here's my console, and there you can see we've got test project.program and test project.someRandomType, which is indeed both of the things in my test project. So that was easy, wasn't it? There you go. Writing a C# compiler is a DOS. Anyone can do it. I think it, honestly, I've been working with this for a year. It takes a special kind of genius for the guys who have put this together to take something so incredibly complicated and make it so accessible, and in ways that are familiar to .NET developers. You know, root.descendant nodes, it's basically just like walking an XML document using link to XML. It is phenomenal, and you know, these are very simple little demonstrations, but trust me, you can find anything anywhere in a solution with this, with a little bit of creativity and a little bit of banging your head against the syntax visualizer in Visual Studio. It's really, really good stuff. Okay, so that was the link API, and that's great for working with when you're looking for something very specific and you're looking for one type of thing. So in that example, I was looking specifically for a base type declaration syntax or anything that inherited from that. But you might have something where you want to find a lot more instances of something or look for lots of different things all in one operation, and you don't want to be hitting this descendant nodes.of type and writing the same thing over and over again. So for scenarios like that, we have something called the C# syntax walker. If anybody has worked with LINQ at a kind of the scary level, it's the visitor pattern. So where you have a tree, you write a type that takes that tree and visits every node and conditionally runs methods in that visitor based on the type of the node. So C# syntax walker actually inherits from C# syntax visitor, which is the base class for it, but C# syntax walker adds some default behavior that will look at an entire syntax tree. If you pass the root node in, it will call visit class declaration for every class declaration syntax in that entire tree. And so we're going to take a look at doing this as well. So if I go back to my program code here, and I'm going to comment that one out and comment this one back in again. So this is the syntax visitor demo. So to do this, I'm going to need a visitor to visit my list types. And so here is my list types visitor. I've already put in the thing that sort of gets the name and everything and writes it out. So I just need to put some methods in here to catch various syntax nodes. And so I'm just going to say override oh no, I'm going to inherit from C# syntax walker. C# syntax walker there. And then I'm going to override visit class declaration syntax. And then I'm just going to call write node. Okay. And then I'm going to call base.visit class declaration node. If in C# syntax walker you don't call the base method on everything that you override, it won't go any further down that tree. So if this class declaration has a nested class declaration inside it, then it will not find it unless you call the base method implementation, because that's the thing where it says, and carry on down the tree. There is no visit base type declaration, so we have to be very specific here. So if I wanted to find interfaces as well, I would have to say override visit interface declaration and do write node on that as well. But yes, that's a C# syntax walker, and you can see if I just go to override here, you can see the vast list of things that are available to override in here. You can go to throw expressions and tuple types and when clauses and catch filter expressions. It's got everything in there. So that's an incredibly useful and powerful way of working with a lot of code and building up some representation. I actually use the C# syntax walker to build an in-memory model of the solution in Visual Recode, along with helpful bits of information, so that I'm not having to calculate everything over and over again. Yes, it's very, very helpful to be able to do that. So if we go back to syntax visitor demo, we'll look at how to consume this. So I'm just going to say var walker equals new list types visitor, and then we can say for each in solution.projects .select many p documents. I actually have a solution.documents extension method for doing that because it comes up quite a lot. And then we can just do our var root equals await document.get syntax root async. If root is null, continue. No. And then we can just say visit walker.visit root. And that's it. So at that point, the C# syntax visitor will take over, descend through the entire tree, and it will call my class declaration every time it finds a class declaration syntax, and my interface declaration every time it finds an interface declaration syntax. So if you run this again, it will have exactly the same output as it did last time. So you can see with test project.program and test project.someRandom type. Okay. So that is a C# syntax walker. It's a very useful way of navigating through the code. But everything we've been looking at so far has been working with syntax. So I can find out what the name of a type is, and I can find out what namespace it is in by walking back up the hierarchy to find out where there's a namespace declaration and get that, and then potentially carry on walking further up to find another namespace declaration. It's not giving us a lot of helpful semantic information about our code. So, speaking of semantics, we have the semantic model feature of Roslyn. So this is where combination of the syntax tree and all the intelligence that's built into Roslyn, combined with the compiler itself actually creating an in-memory representation of what all this means, will give us a semantic model. And semantic models are based on the idea of a compilation. So we have a project, and for each project we can get a compilation that is effectively the in-memory pre-assembly writing step that says, okay, so this project contains these classes and they reference each other, and there are errors in this project, and I can tell you what the errors are if you want to know, and that sort of thing. And from our compilation, we can get a semantic model for a syntax tree that we have got from a document. And then that model will contain symbols, and symbols are the semantic model equivalent of the syntax nodes. And again, there are many, many kinds of symbols. And so we have we have I-type symbol. Most of them are interfaces because they will be different depending on whether they came from the C# compiler or the VB.NET compiler, but they will have the same interface and the same properties. And actually you can use this, sort of take a syntax tree, pass it through a semantic model, and then turn it into the other language at the other side, which is how Visual Recode is going to get the killer feature of converting your VB.NET code to C#, which I'm going to get pilloried for, because in the marketing it's going to be upgrade your C# code, upgrade your VB.NET code to C#. Did anyone drop off the call then? So yes, so we can get symbol info once we've got our model from various types of syntax. So from a class declaration syntax, or a base type declaration syntax, or an identifier name syntax, we can say model.getSymbolInfo, and that will return, it will always return a symbol info object. The symbol property may or may not be set. If it if you give it some syntax and it just goes nope, or if the compilation hasn't worked and it's got errors in it, like if you haven't got NuGet.project_model, it'll have errors in there saying I can't find system.object, what's wrong with you? But model.getSymbolinfo for declarations and properties and that sort of thing. And we also have typeinfo, model.getTypeinfo, and you can give that an expression syntax. So anything that is an expression, so assigning a value to a variable or a Boolean expression inside an if statement. And you can just give it the complete expression and it will tell you what the type of that expression is. What if you returned that expression from a method, the type would be. So those two things are really useful. So let's look at re-implementing our listing types again, but with symbols to make our life slightly easier. So we'll close everything to the right there. I will just show you this. This is timing's working out very well because we can break after this and then we can look at a couple of more complicated examples and an analyzer in the second half of the talk. So let's go to symboldemo.listAsync. And so in here, I'm going to say for each solution.projects, and actually I'm going to go through each project one by one here. And that's Alexa saying she's not sure. Don't worry, Alexa, I've got it. So now I can say var compilation. She's still talking to me because I said her name again. Equals await project.getCompilation async. So like I said, there's a project.tryGetCompilation here, which will return it if it's cached and is still valid. If you're writing something that's really performance critical with Roslyn, then oh dear. But for analyzers, for example, something that's running in the background in Visual Studio, it'll generally give you the compilation for that, but you want to keep things moving fairly quickly. Then we can say for each in project.documents, and then we can say var tree equals document.get syntax tree async, and we'll await that. And then we can get the model equals compilation.get semantic model for that tree. Oh, if compilation is null, continue, and if tree is null, continue. Okay, so now we've got our model for this particular tree. So it's created all the symbols and everything else for all the nodes in this tree. And so now we can descend through the types. So if we go, you can get the root. So we need to get the root node of the tree. Tree.getRoot async, and await that. If root is null, continue. Trust me, all these things can be null. It's, yeah. So root dot descendant nodes dot of type base type declaration syntax. And then I can say symbol equals model.get declared symbol in this case. So this is a type that I have declared in my code. So I can say model.get declared symbol and pass in the type declaration syntax and say if symbol is null, continue. And then Here I can just write symbol.containing namespace dot symbol dot name, and you can see here symbol has got a lot more useful information directly in it, a lot more kind of high level properties that tell you what's going on here. So we've got sort of the containing assembly, the containing namespace, the language it was written in, the declared accessibility. So that's things like, you know, is it public, private, protected? Is it abstract? Is it sealed? And lots of methods as well. So we can say, get me the attributes on this symbol, and we can do other useful things there as well. So we can say, if symbol is I named type symbol, for each in named type symbol dot get members. So you can see there we can go through and that will return a bunch of members, and I can say of type I method symbol, and then I could say console.writeLine $, and we'll just put in method symbol.name there as well. So we'll have an indented list of the methods coming from there as well. Okay, let's run that, and that should just show us the main method underneath the program type. So yes, you can see we've got the main, and you've got the constructor and the static constructor, or whatever CC_Tor is. Lord knows. So yes, this will give you symbols back not only for the code that you wrote, but also for the code that is generated. So if there was a property on this class, it would have method symbols for get underscore and set underscore. There is something in the symbol dot is implicitly declared. So that is, did the compiler generate this code for me, rather than something I generated myself. So if I say if not method symbol dot is implicitly declared, and run that again, no, I forgot the not. But yes, so you can see there that it only showed the things that were automatically generated by the compiler. Now it will show things that are not generated by the compiler. And you'll find that you can have entire classes that are generated. So if you have an async method, then the compiler will generate a nested class to handle the state machine for that async method and the await and everything else. So that's, remember the whole implicitly declared thing. Otherwise you will either get some very strange results showing up in your code analysis, or you'll be attempting to fix things that are not actually in the code, which can have some interesting effect. Or if you're doing what I'm doing, which is reading one solution and generating a whole new one, you'll end up actually writing the code for compiler generated types into the new project, and then spending, I think that took me about 4 hours to work out what was going on there that day. Right, there we go. So that's a kind of pretty quick introduction to Roslyn. Let's have the break and do the breakout rooms, and then when we come back, I'll dive in and show you some more exciting and interesting stuff. Okay.
Okay, so before we, can you hear me now? I'm not sure whether.
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Before we have the break, Mark, can you stop sharing your screen a second?
Yep.
So 2 things before we have the break. First of all, I'm going to take a screenshot to post on Twitter from the .NET Oxford account. So if people don't want to be tweeted out, then turn off your webcams temporarily. If you do a really cheesy grin into your camera. Ready? 1, 2, 3, say cheese. I think that's worked. Oh, fantastic. Right.
Is it harrowing?
It's a bit. In fact, there's not that many people have gone into my gallery view, but there's a few people, so that's quite good. Nice grin, Mark. Awesome, excellent. And the second thing is, before we have a break, we've got a 10-minute lightning talk by Megan from Curricula, telling us all about the current state of the job market, which I'm finding firsthand that it's not great at the moment. So I'll hand over to Megan.
Hello. I will just attempt to share my screen and hope that all works successfully. I'm hoping you can hear and it's working.
Sure can.
Amazing. Perfect. So firstly, I would like to say that I'm absolutely terrified to be speaking at this event this evening. Obviously, I've spoken at .NET events before, but I've never ever spoken at a virtual event. I think the part that I find the weirdest is the complete radio silence when speaking. So obviously, you're normally hoping that it's going to be quiet in the background, but I think the complete silence when speaking at the moment, I fear maybe slightly deafening. So what am I going to talk about? I want to talk to you briefly about COVID-19. So I've got a feeling that you may have heard of it. Basically, the aim of this brief presentation is purely to give you a snapshot of the market. So what we found earlier this year leading up to the event and what we've seen since the dreaded word lockdown. But also to take a brief look at the future and our best guess at what is yet to come. The key word here is guess. It's an educated one, but it is very much a guess. So who am I? My name's Megan. I'm one of the account managers at Curricula. I'm a regular .NET Oxford attendee, including both physical and now virtual events. I'm normally the one handing you a beer, a role that I've apparently neglected this evening. So I do apologise about that. I do hope that you were able to stock up ahead of this evening's event. As for the first time, I think we can honestly say there are no drivers this evening. So please do have quite a few. A bit about Curricula. As Dan mentioned, we provide sponsorship for the event and have been with both Dan and Matt since the event started. We're a local recruitment agency. Our roots are within IT. However, as we've grown as a company, we've diversified and we now cover a range of positions, industries and markets, including permanent and contract. As an agency, we like to take a different approach, something that has recently been highlighted in our nomination for Best Candidate Care at the Recruitment Awards, something we're quite proud of. And as mentioned, I'm here to talk very briefly about COVID-19, hoping to share our knowledge of the market for both candidates and clients, but also here to talk about what we're doing in the current climate to help. So if we take a step back to earlier this year and look at the run up to COVID and what the market looked like. So on the candidate side, it was very strong. There was a high demand for candidates, especially within Oxford and particularly within the development space. On the contract market, as expected, oh, I think we need to go back, I clicked too far, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so on the contract market, it was steady for the time of year that was to be expected. And then if we're looking on the client side, we were seeing the same problems that we've always seen. So lack of supply of technical talent. In order to combat this, we'd seen companies offering kind of better benefits, more flexibility, not only to attract the best talent, but also to hold on to the talent that they had. I did give a talk on this kind of earlier last year, and what we'd seen was companies offering, as I said, remote working, pizza lunches, one of my favorites, unlimited holiday, and kind of they're just a few of the benefits. So if we're leading up to the official lockdown, the government had put in place advice around social distancing, large group gatherings, visiting places such as restaurants, gyms and pubs, anything fun really, apart from gyms obviously. So at this point there had been very, very little change on the recruitment front, recruitment front even. So companies were still actively hiring, they were interviewing and onboarding. One change ahead of official lockdown was the change to IR35. So this was due to come into play April this year. However, the government have now suspended this change. We did see the companies were looking to end contracts, have renewed them. So that's not for every contractor was renewed, but we did see a noticeable change across the business. Then we hit the dreaded word lockdown. I use the term dreaded purely for myself, someone who is going utterly stir crazy working from home with only my dog for company. So in week 1 of lockdown, it's like someone hit the pause button on everything. The majority of clients were holding all of their recruitment, including interviews and offering candidates. For most, it was purely the unknown and the impact the situation would have on their business. But for others, it was logistical. So companies were having to set up their entire organizations to work remotely and needed to kind of take stock and work out how to do this before tackling their recruitment. There were other issues, including childcare. I've been on the phone to many clients and colleagues who are locked down with their children, and from what I have kind of been told and also can hear in the background, it can be a bit difficult. So I was actually on the phone to a colleague earlier who was being force-fed plastic fruit by his daughter while he was trying to resolve my IT issues. It was quite entertaining. We also saw a 95% drop in the number of new roles across both permanent and contract markets, something that was mirrored in America. The market pause was truly a unique event. It was something that has not been seen before, even in periods of recession. Then approaching week 2 and 3, from a candidate perspective, we noticed a visible increase in candidates coming to the market. For a variety of reasons, really. So there were some push factors. So organisations that had struggled before this situation were forced into making redundancies. We also had seen some candidates that had concerns due to the market they were in, leisure and tourism being an obvious one there. There were a handful of candidates that started to look for fear of furlough. So this was a new scheme, and the initial human reaction was to fear it, really. So it was designed to hold on to the talent you have, and initially it was due to run to the end of May. However, this has now since been extended to June. Another reason why candidates were coming onto the market was how they were being treated by their employer. So some organisations were refusing to allow remote working due to the cost that this would have on their business. There's obviously pull factors that are always involved. So companies where there is a compelling reason to join them, for example, life sciences companies, and the expected security that comes with those organisations. The opportunity itself is a big obvious one. So something that you would genuinely not want to miss out on. If we look from a client perspective, we've seen a handful of clients either withdrawing offers of employment or pushing back start dates. Start dates have been pushed back, hoping that the delay will provide companies with some form of clarity in the current situation and a little bit of breathing space in order to figure things out. Others have pushed back start dates purely for logistical reasons, so taking the time to look at remote onboarding and how they can achieve this. There's obviously been a difference in sector, so we've seen life sciences companies continue recruiting, albeit altering the process, but still ploughing ahead, whereas industries such as leisure have taken a hit and held recruitment. With the companies continuing to recruit, we've seen a huge shift in the process, both interview with companies looking at various platforms, and onboarding where companies are actually shipping out equipment and obviously onboarding people remotely. The biggest shift seems to be actually the offer itself, as now hiring managers are willing to offer candidates without actually meeting them, which is something that was unheard of before. So looking ahead to the remainder of 2020, it's incredibly difficult to predict. We do believe that there will be a shift in the way people operate, so seeing a massive change in working practices. We're likely to see increased in remote working and more flexibility being offered. Changes in recruitment processes, including releasing offers without meeting candidates. So that in itself can help speed up the process, but also overcome logistical challenges. So for example, where candidates are based overseas and they're not having to fly over to actually come in and meet with the company. Obviously, healthcare is a key sector, so this has been highlighted as a result of recent events, and we expect to see an enormous increase in funding, particularly within the healthcare industry. So what are we doing to help? For candidates, if you're currently looking or feeling unsettled and want some advice, we're offering something that we call a curricular approach service. It's something we've offered for a number of years. The only difference is it's now a virtual meeting and you will have to bring your own coffee, which based on the Magdalen Centre coffee we used to offer may be a positive, I'm not sure. We'll talk to you a little bit more about your current situation, provide market advice, help you with your CV writing, and look at how best to place yourself in the current market in order to give you the best chance of either securing a new position or making sure that you're getting contacted by either recruitment agencies, internal HR, or various companies. On the client side, we can still provide advice on the current market. We've recently spoken to our client base in order to create a market survey. As we'd found kind of in lockdown, the majority of clients were asking us what other clients were doing. So we put together this document hoping to shed some light on this, and that can be shared with people. We've also put together a redundancy pack, and this can be sent to your employees should you be in the situation where you would need to provide some advice and guidance around this. Another thing we're also currently working on is something called the Curriculo Marketplace or the Labour Exchange Project. So the idea is companies that have development capacity to spare would be able to then sell that capacity to companies that have a demand for it. So the whole aim of this process is bringing companies together. It's a difficult time and we're hoping that it will help both clients and candidates, but also create that sense of community. That's something that we are looking into at this moment in time and hoping to go live either later on this week or early next week. And that is me. I tried to keep within the 10-minute limit and I think I spoke very fast because there was no one in between, but hoping it worked out.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was really good.
Fantastic. Right, we are now going to experiment with this breakout rooms. I've got no idea how it's going to work, but let me just click on breakout rooms. So this is going to pop up for everyone and say you've been invited to a breakout room. Do you want to join? How many people are there?
How do we get out, Dan, afterwards? Is it obvious?
Nope, it's just like Vim. :WQ. So this says assign H9 participants into. Let's go for 10 rooms then. And okay, see you in a breakout room. You can jump out. You can jump out afterwards. So don't feel obliged to join the breakout room if you don't want to. Let's see what happens. Has everyone got pop-ups?
Yep.
So I'm going to stay in here. If anyone wants to ask any questions about anything, then hang around and I'll pretend I know the answers.
Sounds good. Oh, I've not been invited myself to a breakout room. Wow. I'll have to think of some questions to ask you then. But it's really, really interesting. I just find it amazing that you can just drill down on code like that.
It's like Link to C#.
Yeah.
It's really, there's no way I could have written what I've written if this hadn't existed. Sort of.
And presumably, like I know because it was a demo using lots of for eaches, but presumably you can make that tiny by just using link for the whole thing. And
yes.
Get rid of all of it. So like obviously for a demo as you're talking through it, but to make that whole thing link and get rid of the for eaches.
Yeah,
that'd be tiny just to do.
There's a quick extra demo of something after the break that just has a couple of literally just concatenates 2 link queries together to return a list of symbols. Everything you can do in Link, you can do in Roslyn, basically.
Very, very cool. I'm just looking at who's in what breakout rooms. Or not join. It's quite interesting. I've got quite an interesting view. So I've got like a panel where I can see all the breakout rooms. I can see who's in it, who's invited but not joined. Oh, that's quite cool. I'd be interested to know. Well, obviously, everyone that's listening to me right now hasn't joined, so you can't really provide feedback. But be interesting to know how this works afterwards, or whether people prefer just talking in a big room with everyone in.
Where's my backgrounds? Let's put a fun background. I don't want a distracting background while I'm actually talking, but
well, I've got that pub one that's reserved for the pub afterwards. Virtual pub.
So yes, this is the one I used for my stand-up yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that bad. The world's come to an end. Well, I suppose it is in a way.
Yes.
But it's quite scary. I think I just find we're in our industry we're so lucky. I just feel like such horrible stuff is happening at the moment, and I just feel like it's kind of like removed from it slightly. So
we're very insulated.
Yeah.
And we have jobs that we can do.
And yeah, at least we can all work from home, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I'm really enjoying it. So it's kind of, I think, so for a long time I've worked from home on Fridays. So I've done that for years. But then many years ago I worked from home for a bit full time, but not very long. And I was interested to know what it'd be like. And I think after this, I want to stay working remote full time, because I think with technology like this, where you can have almost face-to-face conversations, it just makes it a lot easier. I quite enjoy it. I've got a dedicated office and everything, like no commute. I've substituted my commute with a morning walk, so I quite enjoy it.
I've been working remote pretty much full time since the start of 2018, where the place I was working at the time had one of their bigger offices was being redecorated, and so they ran very short of desks.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like, so everyone who wants to work from home, please go and work from home for 9 months. And then at the end of the 9 months, I was just like, can I just carry on working from home? I really don't want to start coming all the way into London and doing the underground and everything every day. So, and they were like, yep, it's fine.
Well, presumably by then you've proved that you can be productive working from home.
Yeah.
I do hope, because if anything good comes out of this situation, the fact that companies will be more open to remote working, they'll realise that people do still. I suppose it's not even that is because a lot of people, because kids can't go to school at the moment. A lot of people probably can't get work done even when working from home.
Yeah.
So it's probably not a good reflection of what staff productivity is like when working remotely. So, which is a shame.
I have to admit, my team's been about as productive as they were before. You know, even given all of these challenges, even given that they've got their kids running around the house. So, you know, you basically go and say, well, if they got the kids running around the house, they're as productive as they are in the office. So,
yeah, that's true.
Then they'd be more productive than they are in the office.
I've got a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old, and they're less distracting than working in an open plan office.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Speaking of the 14-year-old, by the way, Dan, if you want to talk on Unity, my daughter does talks on Unity.
Yes, definitely. As in a lightning talk or a full length talk?
As in full length talk. So she's done Build Stuff Spain. She spoke at Tretton 37's Leet Speak thing. She's
absolutely.
So she would be very happy to do a talk about Unity and getting started with it. She kind of comes at it from the angle of, hey, programmers, here's something fun you could do with your kids. And I found that's really great. I've actually, my daughter's kind of, she learned C# probably about 5-6 years ago when she saw me working. Was like, and she was doing Scratch at school, and I was just working away, and she was like, what's that programming language? And I said, C#. Can I learn that? And I don't know, let's put Visual Studio Code and .NET Core on your laptop and we'll see. And she went off and wrote this big long, what's your name, console.read line, and then came back and went, how do I make it say something different depending on what you type in? And so I was like, if statements. And then she came back with this just massive branching thing. And then when she got bored with console applications, I went, well, let's learn some Unity. So she's been working on that.
And would she be comfortable with a virtual meetup?
Not sure about that. She might prefer a sort of. She hasn't done a virtual one before, although she's doing all her school lessons through Microsoft Teams at the moment. So maybe she'll be fine. I'll talk to her about it and get back to you.
Yeah, definitely sounds good. So you've heard it live here, folks.
But yeah, and I actually, with my son, he's much more arty and sort of likes creating things, but is not particularly into coding yet. But we're doing a game together. I think he was a bit jealous of Willow doing her coding stuff, and he used to really like Club Penguin. And he said, and they stopped. They shut down all the servers and everything, and he went, "Can we remake Club Penguin?" And I'm kind of like, "Oh my god," because I've seen it and it's really complicated. And I went, "I'll tell you what, you draw the backgrounds and the penguins and all the things that need to be in the game." And I stuck them on the scanner and cut the things out into transparent PNGs and dropped them in Unity as sprites and just put in controller stuff. So if you press left on the joypad, the penguin goes, and there's no animation on the penguin. It's just a static image moving left. But he is obsessed with it. It's actually online. You can go to game.clubpenguinc.com and play it in the browser because Unity. But we've got there's a sort of card rock paper scissors style game in there and a sled racing section, and I've learned more about Unity from doing that with him than I'd ever managed, kind of going, I'm going to make my own JRPG or whatever. Because we started, I think, when he was 7. And when it's a 7-year-old, they don't fucking care. They just want the crap on the screen. But it's brilliant. I get to spend quality time with him. He's learning stuff. He's getting his artistic itch scratched. And I'm getting to do something that I enjoy as well. So, yeah, it's fantastic.
That sounds amazing. Can you, that link you said, can you pop that in the group chat?
I will, yes.
So then, but I am just going to very quickly grab another drink before we start again. So I won't be a second.
There we go. So yeah, that's actually a very old build of the game. We haven't updated it for a while.
Everyone is allowed to chat when I leave the room, you know. Cheers, all.
Cheers.
Your beer disappeared.
Yes, it did. It does. If you get it too close, there we go. The disappearing beer.
Right, I need to change my background. Choose virtual background. Right, am I going to be? Yeah, let's go for some Lego. My son chose this from a Google image search. And then this one is from when me and Matt were messing around with Zoom. And then there's the pub for later.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to that talk, actually. And the one Josh might do. It'd be good if she can do it virtually, because I don't actually know when it will be physical again. But
yes, well, I will talk to her about it.
Yeah.
See what she wants to do.
But hopefully, like some point we're going to go physical again. To be honest, I find it amazing how well this has just worked. Anyway, it just seems to.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that the recording comes through okay.
Well, ideally, you end up with something hybrid where you're virtual and physical, so people can't get in from a long way away, or you've got a remote speaker who doesn't want to travel.
Yeah, I think the problem is it really depends on the venue's connection, and then it can if people physically, you can see that going completely wrong if people physically turn up, and then the speaker can't talk. Do you remember that we had a lightning talk event, and there was, I can't remember who it was. It was someone doing a lightning talk from another country, and basically I think we used Skype or something, and that just didn't work at all. So we ended up just not being able to do that lightning talk. But I guess if that was a full talk, that would be a bit of a nightmare.
I have to admit, I'm amazed that like all this tech has sort of not broken.
I know.
Like, Zoom hasn't gone down, or Microsoft Teams hasn't gone down, even though like it's gone from being like this little thing you use in the office to say hi to each other to being like hey, we're going to go and do a video stand-up again every morning.
Yeah. I think with Microsoft Teams that did like all this kicked off around the time that the MVP Summit went from a physical event to a virtual event. So suddenly there was lots of live stream video just completely hitting it. So I think, and that worked really well. So there was kind of that and everyone going remote. So even though I think they had to turn some features off, so they did have a little bit of issues, but given the load that suddenly, the unexpected load that they suddenly hit, both Zoom and Teams, as you say, it's amazing.
Yeah, some of the smaller platforms have apparently had to do some fairly rapid scaling to cope with everything. House party and things.
Oh yeah, I guess it depends how you're hosting it. If it's on the cloud managed, then it might just be dragging a slider depending on how you set it up.
Yes.
So,
I mean, for Microsoft, it's just spare Azure infrastructure, isn't it?
Yeah.
But to be honest, I'm amazed that they've had the spare Azure infrastructure to the extent that they can deal with it. It's quite impressive.
Oh, they've got so much now.
Yeah, I know, but like they must be, presuming they use it reasonably efficiently, then like, people must be hitting it way harder than they were before.
Well, they did have capacity issues, I think, in Europe. I don't know how much that affected people, but I definitely saw tweets and things going on.
Yeah, wasn't it a couple of weeks ago they were saying the demand had gone up like 700% or something, and they were definitely having some issues. And I've been working through some of these your study stuff, and certainly last week, the week before, I was having trouble spinning up sandboxes just for playing around with stuff.
And Craig was trying to spin up a VM in West Europe.
So, yeah.
Failed. Yeah.
They can take that.
That's what you get for trying to spin up a VM. You should be serverless.
So when I close the breakout rooms, it gives everyone a 1 minute warning. So if I do that now, in fact, I can just move windows around. So I can broadcast or send a message. In fact, you don't need to hear me typing. I've got a desk-mounted microphone. Sorry.
It worked.
Hello. Right, just about to close it.
We didn't know when we would return, so.
I'm literally just sending a message out now saying that I'm going to close the breakout rooms. It gives a 1 minute warning.
Another question: Did my message appear in the chat for the whole Zoom group, or was that just the local breakout room?
Just the local breakout room.
Just the local breakout room.
Yeah. Okay. Right. It's not obvious from the user interface at all.
Close. Right. So all breakout rooms will close in 56 and counting seconds.
Mark, is that the Matrix? Ooh.
It is. It's the lobby from the Matrix.
To the Revolution or Reloaded or
what?
Yeah, you don't know the other two.
There's only one Matrix film.
Where's the Revolution? What? Hey?
Yeah, no.
What about the new one they're making?
I've heard that they're doing a sequel. We'll have to see whether it actually sticks or not.
Because the last ones worked so well.
What ones?
Well, exactly.
There's only one made.
Yeah, there's only one Matrix film. The Star Wars series starts on episode 4.
The breakout rooms have got 5 seconds left, then it automatically closes. So then everyone should join back to this room again.
That worked really well, Dan.
Brilliant. I think that's everyone closed. So you see that worked really well. How did everyone find the breakout rooms for those that joined? Good?
We didn't get to say bye before getting kicked out.
Oh no! You can say bye now because everyone's in the same room. So
we were starting to wonder whether we were actually going to come back to the main session or not. We're like, we just been left in the breakout room.
Yeah, I thought if you couldn't fix it, then we'd be better.
Yeah,
you missed all the good
Mark's
stuff.
finished his talk now, so it's
Yeah.
all done.
It
So-
was great.
Bye.
I showed everyone how to write a script to do their job for them, so that they can just watch Netflix all day.
Well, he did
Stuff
miss-
that was not in birds. I just why? Why?
He did miss some potential news about a future speaker, but I will let Mark tell you about that if he wants to. And he's got to check in with this speaker.
Yes. So my daughter does Unity and is reasonably good at it, and has spoken about it at conferences. And so I'm going to see if she'll be interested in doing a talk for you guys on Unity.
That would be amazing, Mark.
That would be amazing.
That'd be awesome.
Do it.
Cool. Right.
Fantastic. Okay, so shall we start again?
Yay.
Excellent. Over to you.
Right. So, share the screen. You guys all go back down there automatically. Gosh, Zoom is quite good, isn't it? Even if they are stealing all your data. So, just before we get into just before we get into all the rewriting thing, I want to show something Dan actually mentioned during the break in our room that I said it's Roslyn's like Link to C#, and I want to show just how much like Link to C# it can actually be. So we're going to do something a bit different. Rather than just finding all the types that are declared in a solution, we're going to find all the types that are used by the things in a solution. So things like string and void and whatever it might be. So we're going to jump in. And so here I've got a dependencies demo. I've already filled out the list all used types thing because this is doing the same thing, getting the project compilation, checking that things aren't null, getting the compilation model, and so forth. And then I've got this get types method down here, which is going to look for the types that are referenced in each of these documents. And so we can do that with literally straight link queries. So I'm just going to say named types equals node.descendant nodes. And then because we're doing link, we'll do this whole dot new line thing of type. And we're going to look for identifier name syntax. So this is going to find things like the type of a declared field or property, or the return type of a method, or the type of an argument that's been passed to a method. Whatever that is, it will be an identifier name syntax. And then from that, we're going to do a select, and we're going to pass the syntax, and we're going to say model dot get symbol info dot symbol. So that's going to return a symbol info, and then the symbol property will be set to something if it was there, and then to make sure that we only get ones that are actually useful to us, we'll just say we only want the types of named type symbol. So that gets us everything at the kind of class level, members, arguments, that sort of thing, but we also want to find types that are used inside actual code itself. So generic type parameters, actually no, I think those are identifier name syntax, but things like literals being passed in expressions, so integers and that sort of thing. So we're going to look for expression types as well, and we're going to do node.descendant nodes.of type, and we'll look for expression syntax, and that's the base class of a whole ton of different kinds of expressions. And then we'll do a select, a dot select s2, and then we'll do model.get type info, which is the extension method that tells us the type of an expression. And then we'll get type off there, and then we'll say dot of type named type symbol there as well. And then we can just return named types.concat expression types. And so this should find, if I go back to my program thing here, and we'll just uncomment that, this should now find a whole bunch of different types.
Sorry
that
to
are
interrupt,
used
Mark.
in this code. Yes.
Sorry, Mark. Philip's just asked in the chat window, can you make the text a little bit bigger?
A little bit bigger again. Sure can. Settings, font, let's try 18. There we go. So yes, and there you can see that we've got not only we've got system.console because there's a console.write line in this program. We've got system.string because we're passing string hello world to it. We've got the global namespace dot. That's just because I haven't filtered something out that I should filter out. It's also managed to find the attributes from the assembly info file, which isn't even there. It's auto-generated, but it's dug down into the object directory and found it because it counts as a document in the project, and so that's found all the types that are referenced, but it hasn't found the declared types unless they're actually used somewhere. Because we didn't look for declared types. So it hasn't found test project.some random thing. Okay, so that is really highlights how this is just link to C#, and you can just run queries, and you can do where and of type and groupings. Everything you can do with link, you can do with the nodes from a syntax tree. So that's fun, and this sort of quite nicely mixes together the syntax nodes and the model as well. Quick point that I should make, by the way, you see here that I'm saying project.get compilation and then compilation.get semantic model. You can also, there's a document .get semantic model async. It's tempting to use that, and if you're not doing this in a loop, then document.get semantic model async is a shortcut. Basically goes through to the document, it's got a project property, and it goes to the project, says give me a compilation, and then get me the semantic model for the root syntax node of this, or syntax tree of this document. But if you're doing it in a loop, it does have a tendency to rebuild the compilation every single time around the loop, which is why I've created the compilation up at this level, because it's a compilation per project. So we'll talk a little bit more about things like that as we go through the next part of the talk, which is all about rewriting code. Because it's all very well being able to read code and learn things about code, but it's very useful also to be able to rewrite the code. And you can do that. You can generate bits of code and inject it into your syntax tree at specific points, or you can replace syntax nodes in syntax trees. But before we get into that, we need to talk about something really important, which is immutability. So when they were writing Roslyn, they actually created a class library that's available on NuGet and is incredibly useful for some things. System.collections.immutable, which has immutable arrays and immutable lists and immutable dictionaries and immutable hash sets and all sorts of things. Because to make Roslyn safe and secure, they made everything immutable. So what things in Roslyn are immutable? Basically everything. Everything in Roslyn is immutable. If you change it, you don't actually change the object, you return a new object with the change in it, and the old object still exists. So this is true of solutions and projects and documents and syntax nodes and everything. And the reason why it's all immutable is to reduce the amount of locking that needs to go on while you've got Visual Studio trying to do lots of different analyzers and all the different things that are going on at the same time, even while the user's typing into the editor window in Visual Studio. What that is effectively doing at some point somewhere in the code is updating a syntax tree that's being dynamically maintained as they type code in. So if you have a syntax node and you replace
you have like your root syntax node, and then you replace just one node in that. You just upshift a string or something. Your whole syntax tree is recreated right from the top. So if you then carry on and do something else to the syntax node that you have before, then you're not going to be able to, and you apply that change, now you've got another copy of it, and the first change will have been lost, which it's great, and it's completely understandable why they've done it, but it makes it very difficult to do certain things. So if you sort of look through here, and say, imagine I was going through here, and every time I found one of these symbols, I wanted to do something to it. So then I would have to replace that node, but then I would have to go node.descendant nodes all over again, because I would need the new descendant nodes from the new node that's being created by changing something. And then I want to make sure that I don't do the one I already did, because that's been done. Otherwise, I'm just going to get stuck. So it gets really, really tricky trying to deal with changing multiple things in a single operation. And that is why we have a variant of the visitor type called a C# syntax rewriter. So this looks an awful lot like the C# syntax walker that we saw earlier on, but it has each of the methods, so the visit class declaration returns a syntax node as well, and it can either return the syntax node that it was passed, or it can change it and return it back again. And then some very clever code hidden somewhere inside the C# syntax rewriter takes care of managing all of those changes, combining them all together and applying them to the same syntax tree. So we're going to look here at this project, and we're going to use a rewriter demo, and we're going to upshift all our strings, and we've got a string literal upshifter here. So this is our class that's going to do the job of rewriting the syntax. So I'm going to inherit from C# syntax rewriter here. And I'm going to pass in a semantic model so that we can do intelligent things with the code. And I'm going to say override visit literal expression. So a string constant in your code, or a name of expression as well, are represented as a literal expression syntax. So in here I can say if model.get type info node.type is I named type symbol type. So this is C# 8 sort of, or 7 point something's nice type matching thing there, so I can check whether it is something and cast to it all at the same time. And then I can say if type.name is string, and then I want to make sure that this is system.string, but actually you could declare your own system.string if you wanted to. What I want to do is find all the strings in this solution, and I want to call toUpper invariant on them. And so rather than checking the namespace of this type to see if it's system, or checking the assembly that it's in to make sure that it's mscallib or system.runtime, I can actually say type.getMembers, and we'll put name of string.toUpper invariant in there. Dot first or default is I method symbol. So now, just like in runtime reflection where you say get type and then get methods, and has it got a method called toUpper invariant, and you get the method info for it, you can do a very similar sort of thing while you're browsing through the code with your code, and say, does it have a member called toUpper invariant? which is a method symbol. And if it does, then we can create a new node and return that back here. And so I just want to take the literal expression, whatever that was, and wrap that in an invocation expression to call the toUpper invariant method on it. And so now I'm going to dive into Syntax Factory. So to create syntax from thin air, you use Syntax Factory. Huge static class, lots of methods on it. Basically for almost every, actually for pretty much every syntax node and token and trivia that there is in Roslyn, Syntax Factory has a static method to create them for you. So I'm going to say return Syntax Factory dot invocation expression, and which effectively is call. And what I'm going to call is a member on the literal expression, and that member is called toUpper invariant. So I'm going to say Syntax Factory dot member access expression, and this wants me to specify a type. So we're going to say syntax kind dot simple member access expression. And then the thing that we're accessing the member on, the expression syntax, is just the node that we've been passed. So we can pass that back in here. We can pass that node back into the modified node, and it will actually create a shallow copy of it internally. The optimization stuff that they did to avoid creating classes, they reuse things and mark them as dirty and sort of do copy on change and all sorts of things inside the code. And then I'm just going to syntax.identifier name. So this is creating a token. And I'm going to say name of string.toUpper invariant again there. And then close another bracket, and we're done. Oh, I can take that out. There we go. So if the type of the literal expression is string, and it's got a method called toUpper invariant, and I'm going to assume that it doesn't have any arguments, but I could, from this method symbol, I could dive in and say, just make sure it hasn't got any arguments on it, using sort of first or default m to m dot argument list dot is empty, which would say this doesn't have any arguments. And then that I can call from my rewriter demo here, and because everything is immutable. So the workspace is the only thing that is not immutable. The workspace has a current solution. If you change something in the solution, then you apply that to the workspace and it will set current solution to your new solution. So I'm going to keep my new solution. I'm going to start off by setting that to workspace.current solution. And I'm going to count how many things we've done here as well. And then I'm going to show my hand because I have this solution basically open on another window. So let me delete this out. So we've got our root here. So we're going to create an instance of our upshifter, a new string literal upshifter, and we're going to pass our model in there. And then we're going to say our new root. So our new sort of all the syntax in this document is going to come from upshifter.visit root. So if there was a string in there and it's made a change to it, then new root is going to be something different. Otherwise, it's still going to be root. We can compare two pieces of syntax by saying if not, new root dot is equivalent to. So you can have two syntax nodes that have got exactly the same syntax in them, but are not the same syntax node. And the is equivalent to method will return true if they mean the same thing. So all the names are the same, the tokens are the same, yeah, so you don't have to compare the two types directly. So if it's changed, if it's not equivalent to root, then we're going to increment our count, and we're going to say new solution equals new solution dot with document syntax root. Document.id and new root. So we jumped right back up. So we're looking at a document, we're taking the syntax out of a document, but we've changed something. Now, if we said, okay, now apply the change to the document and create a new document, and then take that document and replace the existing document in the project with it, and then take that project and replace the existing solution in the project with it, that's a lot of code we don't want to write. It also means that Microsoft couldn't actually optimize what's happening behind the scenes. So at the solutions level, we can just say, replace the syntax in this document with this new syntax here. So that's actually nice and easy. And then after that loop, we can say if reference equals new solution workspace dot current solution, if not. So if we've changed new solution, so we can't do, there's no is equivalent to on a solution, because the amount of comparisons it would potentially have to do on some of the 300 project solutions that I've seen. But for these purposes, we can say if it's changed, then if it hasn't changed, then new solution will still be workspace.current solution if nothing's changed. But if it has changed, then we say workspace.try-apply changes new solution. Why is it try-apply changes? Because it returns a Boolean. And the bool that it returns will be true if the changes were successfully applied, and false if they were not successfully applied. The reason they might not be successfully applied is because the workspace might say the new solution that you're passing in is based on an older version of current solution. So current solution changed since you took your copy of it and made those changes. So I can't apply these changes to what is now the current solution. Please go and run all that code again, which is literally the only option I know of for fixing that. You're basically running it all again. You can cache a bit of information in memory to make it run quicker the second time through, but you need to go through to all the compilations again, because you don't know whether that change in current solution is that somebody has commented out a line or deleted a line of white space, or whether they've completely rewritten an entire class. So you can't make any assumptions about it. We're just going to assume that it's worked here, though, because it will. And then we can just say count changes applied. So I'm going to run this now, and remember, we are running it against my test project here. So we're going to get hello world. This should be upshifted, and I don't know whether that will be upshifted or not. It'll be interesting to find out. So let's just go and run this. So building and running. 3 changes applied. So what have you found to upshift in this solution? Let's go back in here and we'll have a look. And so we can see that hello world has gone to upper invariant. Name of program hasn't, because it's not a string literal, it is a name of expression. Some random type hasn't. Oh, I wonder what could possibly have been upshifted in this application. Let's find out by trying to build it. Oh, look. It went off and it found the magically generated assembly info file and it added to upper invariant on there as well. So we can take that out again. And shut that down again. But yes, so that is how we rewrite code at a very simple level. I use that in Visual Recode, so the code that gets migrated across, I comment out attributes like service contract so people can see what the service contract used to be. So I just wrap it in leading and trailing trivia with a start and end comment using the /*/. You can use it for all sorts of stuff. I use it for finding operation context.current anywhere in the code and replacing it with a call to something that makes more sense in the generated code and so forth. So that was rewriting code in a console application, but I want to finish, and we kind of run over a bit. I hope it's okay. This is going to be about another 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, brilliant. With the thing that most people do with Roslyn, and actually one of the most useful things you can do with Roslyn, which is to create your own Roslyn analyzers. And you can use this to ensure that people are using your library code correctly, or just because you're a fascist and you want to make sure that everybody writes code the way that you write code, and style cop and FX cop are not fascist enough for you. And so you can make this even more fascist. You could make this go through and look for types which, like organization, where they've been spelled with the American spelling, and just change it to the English spelling if that's the sort of thing you want. Actually, I might do that and put it on NuGet. I have not enough time for all the fun things in the world. So, you may have noticed that we had a diagnostic source in this application here up at the top, and diagnostics, whole other talks on diagnostics, but the diagnostic listener, diagnostic source thing, essentially you can write just random objects to it, and then other people can listen on an iObservable, and they will receive those objects and then they can reflect against them and stuff. And so the signature for this is diagnostics.write, the name of the diagnostic, and then an object. And a lot of the time it's an anonymous object that's got a bunch of properties on it that you want to pass through to your metrics backend or whatever it might be. So you tend to put diagnostics in seriously hot paths. They're used in ASP.NET Core, and they are sprinkled right the way through all the middleware. So begin action, begin execute view, end execute view. There's all sorts in there. They don't want to be writing to those if nobody's listening, and they don't want to be constructing the objects if they're just going to be thrown away immediately. So it's very important before you write to diagnostics to check whether it's enabled. It's also a faff, and so I don't want to have to do it, but I do it. And I want to make sure everybody else does it as well, because otherwise we're just creating lots of garbage objects on the heap and we're going to be slowing everything down. And so for this, we use a full-on Visual Studio analyzer. Let me make this text a bit bigger and make that go away. So we have two types in our project here. So this project, I want us to get to this. So I want to detect that somebody has called diagnostics.write without the check, and then I want to have a fix that adds the check for me. So they can just press Control click or Alt enter, and it will add the is enabled guard for them. I've jumped into Visual Studio. I really like JetBrains Rider. It's my favorite IDE for C# these days. But you can't write Visual Studio extensions in Rider, which is weird because you can write everything else in there. And the only project template that Visual Studio provides for an analyzer also includes a Visual Studio plugin. So we have Analyzer with code fix. Creates a C# analyzer that comes with a code fix and generates diagnostics, can be deployed as either a NuGet package or a VSIX extension. So if you have a diagnostic, if you have an analyzer that you want everyone in your organization to be using on every project, you can create it as a Visual Studio extension, push it onto everyone's machine. If you have one, if you look at like XUnit, the XUnit NuGet package comes with analyzers that tell you that you're using XUnit wrong. And so you can deploy it as a NuGet package where it's only included if it's actually necessary. The nice thing with shipping it as a NuGet package is it will work in Rider. It will also work in VS Code if you the C#. I think the C# extension for VS Code just does it these days with analyzers in packages. You can also create a standalone code analysis tool, which will essentially generate that console application that I showed you at the start there. And we're going to create a class that inherits from diagnostic analyzer that makes the squiggles in our editor. And we're going to create a code fix provider that fixes the squiggles in our editor. And I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail on what's going on here. And as with all Visual Studio plugin projects, 90% of this is boilerplate and I didn't write it, so don't even ask. I mean, there's a whole bunch of localizable strings here. Like, I'm going to localize my analyzer, but people out there do. So this is my analyzer. It inherits from diagnostic analyzer. It has an attribute to say it's a diagnostic analyzer and which language it is designed for. So this is one that's going to work against C#. It overrides an initialize method, which takes an analysis context. And actually, if I comment out these two things here, the analyzer project has actually got an analyzer that comes with it that says configure generated code analysis and enable concurrent execution. And if I press Control dot, it will use a fix to fix the analyzer in the it's very meta, put it that way. So yes, those are two things that you should do. I don't know, it just said I hadn't done them, so I pressed Control dot and went, there you go, do it. The important one is analyze node, and that's going to pass us in a complete syntax node analysis context. So that has the node, but it also has the semantic model and lots of other information that we need to make our analyzer run smoothly. So we can say, get the invocation expression. From here, we know it's going to be an invocation expression because this won't trigger on, when we did register syntax node action, we said you're going to call this method here, and you're going to call it when the node that you're on, or the node that you're analyzing, is an invocation expression. So we don't need to find out whether it is. We know it is because we did that here. Then we can call this isDiagnostic source method invocation, which sounds like a very helpful thing, but it's an extension method that I wrote. So this says, right, is the expression that is being invoked a member access expression syntax? If it's not, this isn't us, we don't care. If the expression, if the member being accessed doesn't match method name, which if I just go back quickly, is right. And so we could create this for sort of start and various other things as well. So if the method's not called right, then we don't care. If the symbol for the expression is not a method, then we don't care. So if this is something that's just like a write expression, and then we say if the receiver type is null, how you have a null method receiver type, I'm not sure, but you can. Oh, VB, because by the time they're symbols, they may have come from VB. But so we can say if the receiver type .name is diagnostic source, or it's diagnostic listener, because you can use both of those, and the containing namespace is diagnostics, and the containing namespace is containing namespace, because when you get into symbols, this is how this happens, is system, then we're going to say, right, this is a diagnostic source, or and we are going to trigger this, and we're going to pass the first argument to this method. So we go to expression list.arguments. If there's more than one argument, then we'll set this out value here to that first argument. So if it's not a diagnostic source method invocation, then return it. Then we check whether it's guarded. And so we jump down here, and now we can look back up the tree to say, is there an if statement calling is enabled on this same symbol further up the tree that wraps around this? And so we have matching symbol exists, and we go, is it an invocation expression? And we've got if the parent, so yeah, we're foring. This is lots of fun. This is one of those for loops that doesn't just do an integer and increment it. So we say parent is the current parent. Parent isn't a method or property declaration. So we're basically going stop when we get to a method or property declaration. And then parent equals parent.parent. If parent is null break, if parent isn't an if statement, then continue. Back round the loop again, because we're looking for an if statement. And then we can say get the invocation expression in the if statement, and here we are looking for child nodes. So we don't want descendant nodes because there's dozens of invocations inside this if statement, but there's only going to be one, or possibly two if there's an ORs in there, as child nodes of that statement. And then we can say, is it a diagnostic source method invocation of is enabled? And if it's not, then we can continue. Otherwise, if the symbol is this, and we do symbol equality comparer, so we can check to see whether the symbol that is enabled is being called on is the same symbol that write is being called on. And if it is, then we return true, because we say matching symbol does exist. Otherwise, we can say is enabled called equals true and return false. Okay, so yes, anyway, all this code is going to be on GitHub, and I will put some comments in there and everything. So if it is guarded, then we just return because we don't want to do anything. Otherwise, our context object here has a method on it to say report diagnostic. And so we can either say the no guard rule, which is that is enabled hasn't been called at all. The mismatch guard rule will check is enabled takes the string argument that you pass as the first argument to write. So if you say if is enabled foo and then call diagnostic source.write bar, that's a mistake. So the mismatch guard rule is saying is the first argument to each of those things the same as well. Okay, so we can see that working. If I go back to my test project here and I just say diagnostics.write foo new a equals 42. So this is already got that project included as a NuGet package, and you can see here calls to diagnostic source.write should be guarded with is enabled. And if we go back to here, that is one of the strings hidden somewhere in my localizable strings there. And then we have the code fix provider, and the code fix provider gets the code fix context, which again knows what the error was. And so we say here we've got our code fix provider. We use the export code fix provider attribute to ship it outside. You get the impression that analyzer and fix provider were written by two different people or at two different times, because this one's just diagnostic analyzer, whereas this is export code fix provider. Don't know what's going on there. This overrides a list of IDs of diagnostics that it can fix. And so we're just going, we can fix the diagnostic source guard analyzer things. We can get a fix all provider. Batch fixer will actually do the magic of batch fixing for us. And then we do something fairly similar to what we were doing in our previous rewriter code here, except we're not using a visitor at this point. We're just going to do this the hard way. So we're going to say, find the member access expression, get the identifier name syntax, get the expression there. So this is the, so the expression here is the complete diagnostics.write and the arguments and the parentheses and the close and the closing semicolon. So we're going to get the member access out of there, which is the write, which will give us the name of the object. We're going to get the leading trivia off here because it's indented by 12 spaces in this case, and we need to indent another line with the same 12 spaces and then add another 4 spaces onto this. We're going to get the first argument out, which is the string argument bar. And then we're going to say the source for this, so the diagnostic source. And then we're going to create an expression. There is a cheaty shortcut way to create expressions, which is syntax factory.parseExpression and just chuck the C# at it in a string. And trust me, I've written a lot of code generation stuff over the last year, and String Builder has a much easier interface than Syntax Factory. So much easier to work with, particularly if you want to apply anything resembling formatting to it without going completely insane. So I'm just using a nice shortcut here. I just want to say parse expression source.isEnabled. Now, I want the isEnabled to take a parameter. I want it to take that string literal that we've got here. So I've just got my brand new syntax node that I've created here, my invocation expression syntax, and I'm going to replace its node. I'm going to replace its argument list with that argument list, but with arg added. So that's going to take whatever the argument was from diagnostic source.write and add it to the argument list for diagnostic source.isEnabled. Okay. Then I'm going to create an if statement, and I'm going to do this the proper way. So I'm going to say if statement, and I'm going to pass in the token if keyword, and then the open paren token, and then this is enabled invocation expression syntax up here, and then I'm going to close the parenthesis, and I'm going to put a trailing trivia of a new line on there. A new line is defined down here. And then the nth parameter to this statement here is the thing that is wrapped by the if statement. This could be a block, but in this case it is just the diagnostic write expression. And then I'm going to tack the leading trivia from the original line onto this, so it will be indented at the same level. And I'm going to indent the expression so it will be indented another level. Is everybody still with me?
Ish.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All my talks finish like this. It's kind of like, I'm understanding this, I'm understanding, and then I go mad at the end and just, yeah. So yes, indent. This is the easiest way I found to do this. Basically, I've got a node and I want to indent it. So give me the leading trivia off that node, which will be everything from the previous new line, in this case 12 spaces. Then add 4 spaces. 4 spaces down here is just syntax factory.whitespace and 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Sorry, it's because my font's bigger. It looked like a lot of spaces, but it's not. And then I return that node with the leading trivia. So again, it's all immutable. So I get the leading trivia off there and add 4 spaces to it, which creates a new trivia. And then I return node.with leading trivia, which replaces the node's previous leading trivia with this new trivia here. Okay. So this returns a solution here. It takes care of the whole workspace apply changes thing for me. I don't have to worry about that. So once I've created my if statement, which has got my diagnostic source.write statement embedded inside it, I just go, give me the original solution from the project, get the syntax root for this document, replace the expression node that we were passed right at the top up here with our if statement that we've just generated, create a new solution replacing that document syntax with our new syntax root that we've got from replace node here, and then return that new solution. If none of this stuff happens, then we just return the solution that we got originally. Note that this is async, so it's all running in background threads and everything else, so it can run, it's nice and performant and it won't block the UI while it's doing things. And to prove that that works, I can go back to here, and because I'm in ReSharper, I'm going to press Alt-Enter instead of Control-Dot, and I get my code fix action pops up saying add is enabled guard, and it adds if diagnostics.isEnabled foo, and now everybody's happy. And if I change that to bar, what I haven't got down to doing is finding that and changing the matching name there. But at some point I will. But yes, so that is a Roslyn analyzer and a code fix. And okay, yes, it's complicated. I'm not going to pretend that that was easy, and particularly the code fix part of it did take me a reasonable amount of time to write, but I think it was an hour. Although with familiarity with Roslyn and syntax trees and syntax nodes and all this sort of stuff. But writing simple analyzers and code fixers is actually quite straightforward. That one was quite complicated. It was looking for something very specific on a very specific type, and then it had a very specific fix. Some of them are much more straightforward, and some of the ones that you can find in other places are much simpler to write than that. And like I say, an awful lot of it is just boilerplate as well. So that's basically it from me. Useful resources, if you want to dive into this and have a nice kind of at your own pace learn this stuff, then Josh Varty's Learn Roslyn Now tutorial series is amazing. That's what I use to learn all the basics and get myself up and running. If you're interested in writing analyzers, the easiest way to do it is to find somebody who's written an analyzer that's quite similar to it and just steal. GitHub.com/.net analyzers has got a whole world, lots and lots of analyzers in there that do all sorts of different things with code fixes, so you can use those as examples for your own projects. If you want to see the most amazing thing that's ever been built with Roslyn, then Visual Recode is my project, and I have to plug it. And that is basically it from me. Thank you so much. I hope that was helpful, and do feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions or help, or you get stuck on trying to build something. Thank you.
Right. I'm going to now flail around in Zoom to try and make myself a presenter. I have literally no idea how to do this now.
So I will stop sharing.
I don't know. I'm just going to carry on talking. So, Mark, that was awesome. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed that. Obviously, as always, thank you again to Curriculo for being here and talking to us and being nice and facilitating us in all the usual ways. Although, obviously, negative points for not providing us with a ton of beer in our own homes. But otherwise, very good. And Megan, thank you very much for that insight you gave us as well. Dan, well done for organising a virtual meetup. Everyone obviously remain indoors, which we're doing, which is good. So it's actually really nice to see so many people still, signing in and participating here and having a chat with people in the break. It's really nice to kind of keep that kind of flowing, and hopefully we'll continue to do so over the next couple of months, or however long it lasts. Anyway, maybe it's a couple of months, it might be a couple of years. Who knows? We might know what the date is by the time it finishes. We might not, but we'll see what we can do. Obviously, from a .NET Officer point of view, we've got lightning talks in May on the 19th. So if you would like to submit a talk to do to present over Zoom and give yourself an amazing background and breakout rooms, etc., then please do kind of get in touch with Dan and myself. And the exciting news, I think it was exciting, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, was that we've got some guy called Scott Hansel something or other in June coming to do a talk for us. So that should be awesome. Whatever he talks about is normally quite good. So I think that'll be really quite an interesting talk to turn up to. Dan is going to put a poll up about now, if he hasn't done already, about whether we should have a virtual pub breakout rooms or whether you guys are all just going to skip off and go home and drink on your own / go to bed or whatever, or whether we want to do individual breakout rooms or stuff. So just kind of vote along in there and see what happens. Obviously, we can't actually go to the pub today. A little bit disappointing, but I've got a good stock of wine and gin, so I'm perfectly happy, quite frankly, at the moment. Anything else? Yes, tomorrow, if you're at loose end tomorrow, you got .NET Southeast. There's a talk about Blazor by a guy called Roland Guit, I think his name is. I'm going to try and guess how to pronounce that. But that does look kind of quite interesting as well. You can go and have a look at that. If you just Google .NET Southeast, you'll find it pretty easily. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. It's been awesome. It's been great to listen to the event. It's been great to not be overly interrupted by my children in the background at an ungodly hour for children to be awake. So yeah, fantastic. Again, thank you very much, Mark, for travelling all this way. It's been good.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Where's the poll at, Dan? What are we looking at?
Right, so 71% say they need to leave and can't make the pub, so don't care. 24% say they're staying for a bit, but they prefer the main room, and only 5% say they want breakout rooms. So let's just stay here.
Yeah, so, main room it is. Awesome.
We'll probably do like a Survey Monkey or something going out just to see what people prefer. Like for the break in the middle, do people like the breakout rooms? Do you not? Shall we stay in the same room? Just get a bit of feedback, because obviously this is the first time we've ever tried this before, and just to get a bit of feedback on what you like and what you don't like, whether it worked. Good.
Mm-hmm. How did everyone find Zoom? Any comments on Zoom?
Yeah, it works fine.
Well, yeah, I know it works. They have a reputation.
Yeah, well, as long as you're not doing secret.
So this is the first talk I've done. I've done a couple of Zoom ones. This is the first one where I had a whole screen with I could see people, and it really made a difference. And future things that I do, I'm going to say, please can I have a window? Please can you tell people to turn their webcams on? Because it's so much nicer being able to see people actually listening. It feels less like you're just talking to a wall. So that was really good. Thank you for that.
I'm assuming it's quite nice. You get to have like a screen just full of your notes as well.
Yeah. So many. I've got 4 screens.
All the notes.
One has one has a copy of the solution on it that is literally called Crib.
That's good, man. It's quite interesting actually seeing so many things kind of going on. There's a little chat window going on. I haven't figured out, Dan, when you were doing the intro talk, and you were talking about whether it's obvious that people are putting their hands up or saying go faster, go slower. Did you see me spamming the crap out of you with those buttons?
Nope.
Okay, so it's not very obvious then. It's what to pick up on.
Yeah, it's a shame because especially like the hands up, you'd expect to really make that obvious to the speaker.
Yeah. So I saw was it Kieran? Someone did stick their hand up near the end. I just noticed it too late.
I think Stuart's just put his hand up now, but that's only because I'm watching the participant window.
What, you saw him do that, or?
Yes, just like that.
Yeah.
The thing with you don't see that when you've got your screen shared. So you don't see the hand being raised when you've got your screen shared, but you sort of think that's the person who needs to see the hand being raised is the one who's sharing the screen.
Can you open another window at the same time though? So I had the gallery and the screen share, and that worked well as a spectator.
So that's a fair point, Mark. You've got more screens than anyone humanly alive at the moment.
Oh, Dylan's got 6.
Has he? Oh.
Yes.
That's
I would have more. I'm just at the limit of my graphics card. It's only got 4 outputs on it.
I sense envy.
New PC coming soon.
It's a hard life, eh?
It is a hard life.
Mark, is that so? You've got to beat Dylan, so you need to get.
I'm going to 8.
Gonna get 2 2080 Ti's.
First world problems, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
I've only got 4 monitors. Oh.
I mean, one of my screens is actually an 11-inch sort of. I think it's a CCTV monitor or something, and I was using it during this talk. I had the gallery window so I could see people's faces, but normally it's my terminal window. So I actually just have a monitor dedicated to the command line, and it just sits just below my main screen. It's brilliant. I love it. It's not why I bought it, but that's what I use it for. I love it.
I just lost my mic. I just love seeing everyone's backgrounds, especially the space one that's making me feel a bit sick at the moment. But
Neil's.
No, it's not really. It's very cool. Has anyone got a green screen here, or is it just using Zoom?
I got one. Hold on.
No.
Oh, you've got one.
Okay.
Nice.
I've got a green screen in my basket on Amazon that I've been meaning to buy for the last 3 weeks, and it was 35 quid when I put it in there, and it's about 80 at the moment.
See that that Stuart just did. The green screen thing is so effective that I thought he just dropped a projector screen down and revealed the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge behind it. That was really smooth.
good, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have a go of an old Subbuteo pitch as a green screen, but it doesn't properly work.
Don't know, I couldn't see it. Kept blending into the background.
Hang on, if I switch the green screen on, choose virtual background, I have a green screen.
Nice.
That obviously just means, Philip, that you're very eco-friendly and you just blend away. What are you doing?
That's strange.
It's distribute. It doesn't really work.
Your arms. It's showing everything. It's.
Well, it's like doing the opposite of what it should.
Yes.
But if you need to walk around Hogwarts at night, you're on.
Do you have a Marauders map as well?
Mischief managed.
Green screen thing gets complicated though outside of Zoom because Zoom supports it, but then Teams doesn't have an option for green screen, and not much else does. And then you can get virtual cameras and stuff, but then they add a delay, and then your sound doesn't match the video, and it's just a bit of a headache, to be honest.
Oh my god! I downloaded something to do the virtual cam a couple of days ago, and it was like a 24-second delay. I was just like, Why did you even release this? Like thinking that was an acceptable amount of delay, and that was hardwired into my laptop. Like from my phone to my laptop has a camera, and it's 24 seconds delay. That's insane.
That's
absolutely insane.
One thing I do
is
like
that going
is
through OBS Studio or?
Yeah,
I know OBS Studio has got a plugin which is a virtual cam, so you can like use OBS. You can add background and change all stuff. You can overlay stuff on top, and then you can have Zoom use that virtual cam.
Yeah, I can't remember what that camera's called actually. I think I might actually have it here.
The NDI one.
I've got one called Split Cam, which I think does the same thing. But I haven't got around to trying it yet because I downloaded it with an aim to getting a chroma key screen behind me. Because yeah, it turns out that it's not so great when you try and make OBS make it up and pretend to be chroma key. Turns out I just disappear and I'm mostly blue apparently. Good. But it's all fun. The challenges of working from home, eh?
Yeah. One thing I saw is because Microsoft people are using Teams a lot more, and they didn't support virtual backgrounds, and they obviously prioritized making virtual backgrounds possible over creating a nice user experience for it. So at the moment in Teams, you can go into App Data, Microsoft Teams backgrounds uploads, and just drop image files in that directory, and they'll show up in Teams. And I like the way that they just kind of went, what's the quickest thing that could actually work? And people could start using it without us needing to add UI and upload files into a web application and all that sort of thing. So yeah, that's I was quite impressed with that.
When they started providing the backgrounds, the bit that I read was that at the moment there are some set backgrounds, but then there will be another feature where you can then upload. So have they actually publicised that you can upload?
I will stick the path in here for you.
All right, that'd be really good because I can show off at work tomorrow.
There were a load of blog posts about it, but it doesn't kind of make it clear whether they officially wanted people to know about it or whether they, because I couldn't see a Microsoft blog post about it. But yeah, everyone in our company was doing it and then putting random backgrounds.
Yes, it sort of snuck out there, but that's the path that you need to paste into File Explorer, and then drop 1080p images in there, and it'll they'll just show up in Teams.
What you can't do is the moving ones like you can do in Zoom.
No, it doesn't support animated GIFs.
Yeah, that's mostly annoying. I need the GIFs, all of the GIFs.
Yeah, but
absolutely.
The video overhead.
You can hack the video going through OBS though. So if you use a virtual cam, you can.
Oh, what into Teams?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So with the OBS, if you install a virtual cam plugin, you can then just in Teams set your webcam as the virtual cam, and it'll be whatever OBS is streaming out.
One of my colleagues was doing this, and he'd done the, I think it was Snapcam or whatever, and then you had fish just walking across the screen as he was talking, and it was really, really disconcerting, and not at all productive.
Yeah, you can tell everyone's really busy at the moment.
That's the thing, because I've been sort of scouring the internet looking for cool backgrounds, and I wanted scenes from movies, but without any people in them, and it's quite difficult to find the scenes from movies without the people in them.
And yet you've managed.
And yet I have. So yes, I'll tell you what, see if you can name the movies.
Dr. Strangelove?
Yep.
Not another bloody quiz.
Yes, another quiz. Why not?
Another one. Oh, dude. That looks like some kind of manga video.
No, it's actually the concept art from something. Because I couldn't find an actual shot of it without the guy in it.
I'm going to spotlight you so everyone can see it. There you are.
Whoa. I have no idea what that is.
It's Sebastian's lab from Blade Runner.
Ah, okay.
And then I've got this one. So note the bar at the sort of left of the thing, as you're probably seeing this the right way around.
What is that?
It's the reception room from Stark Tower.
I've never even heard of that film.
From the Avengers, Avengers Age of Ultron.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah.
This one.
Oh, The Shining.
Yep. And this is the most difficult one.
That's just a pile of tyres.
That's James Bond, wasn't it?
That's what?
James Bond.
No.
No.
No. Although you're close, it is a bomb. Or
No,
rather,
Bond.
it's Fight Club, yes. Who said Fight Club? So yeah, there you go. That's my backgrounds.
Nice. Mine are all just stupid crap I found on the internet. Hooray.
No, our stand-ups, it's become kind of a competition, so...
So question.
To try and find things.
So this is all now recording. Does this quiz get published to YouTube?
I don't know. Probably get takedown things because now it contains copyrighted images from movies.
That's true. They've probably got like machine learning in that.
Right, I got to go. Take care, everyone.
All right, cheers.
Cheers, man.
See you
Take
next
care.
time. See you later. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
How many's left? 19. That's pretty good, actually. That's a lot more than we normally get to the pub anyway, so...
Because we're not also kind of dilly-dally like we normally do for about 20 or 30 minutes before we do anything.
That's true.
Can't get anything people in the old Tom anyway, Dan.
That's true.
And I can actually drink because I don't have to drive home afterwards. So that's nice.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's why we've got more people as well, because everyone's thinking, I've got to drive, I've got to commute. This is amazing.
Yeah. I've got to commute downstairs. I mean, if I drink too much, that's going to get ropey, if I'll be honest. It's a steep staircase.
Well, I've got to commute upstairs, so that might be even more... well, I don't know.
It's more difficult to fall upstairs than down, Dan. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, but...
If you're going up, you could fall down.
Yeah, exactly. I might just get almost to the top, almost made it, and then...
But now is not the time that you want to do that.
No, no one wants to be in any
to go to hospital, do you?
Is there ever a time you want to fall down the stairs?
I don't know, Tuesday morning.
But there's sometimes are worse than others, you know. Going to hospital's generally a bad thing to do, but to do it now, you don't, you know, if you can avoid it, you want to avoid it, don't you?
Very true, very true.
I saw somebody fall down an up escalator once.
That must have just been the gift that keeps on giving.
It was.
They just keep rolling.
Yeah. Yeah. It was trying to get a grip onto something to stop themselves falling down. But,
it's all smooth glass on the side, so we can't.
Yeah, that's it. It's smooth metal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seen that one where the old gentleman is at the bottom and he manages to spin himself around with the down and up escalator. So he's on the conveyor parts and you're just spinning round. The security person comes along and switches it off.
Yeah. But no. To be fair, I mean, you sort of go, you shouldn't laugh at other people's misfortune, but it was an idiot who had decided he was going to run down the up escalator, so he had kind of brought it on himself.
Deserves it.
So, yeah. No sympathy.
Cool, what's an escalator? I haven't seen one of those for quite a few weeks.
Yeah.
I suppose I should have one fitted in my house.
Oh, that's the dream.
I don't know. Like typically, when you're going up and downstairs in your own house, you require something in a certain amount of time. Not sure I could be patient enough for an escalator. Plus, I'm pretty sure my kids would not be on the right side for standing still.
No.
They'd be standing still on the left. It would enrage me.
And you'd kind of need two as well.
Yes.
Whereas a static staircase, you only need one. So
yeah, unless you get a slide.
Well, yeah. Yeah, that would work.
Running down on the upwards escalator, probably.
Fireman's pole.
Like a helter-skelter, and then an up escalator.
No, fireman's pole.
Or a fireman's pole.
I'm pretty sure the firemen need it, to be honest. I could try taking it, but I don't think they'd be too impressed.
Well, some of them are driving ambulances now, aren't they? Some of
But the ambulance driver's not a bit miffed by that.
Well, no, because there's a shortage of ambulance drivers because some of them have got the virus. The firemen are helping out because they can drive at relatively high speeds safely with a blue light.
It must be like slipping into a go-kart for them. After driving a massive fireflies and then it's a little nimble ambulance, like, bloody hell, this is fast.
Kids no queue at the bar.
It's like NASCAR, but for an ambulance. That's amazing.
I must find it really strange with how empty the roads are.
It's brilliant. I mean, I grew up in a little village, and it just reminds me of being young. I'm not in a massive place now. I'm still in the town, but I look out the window and there's like no traffic. It's just like when I was a kid. Or I can look up in the sky and there's no planes. Crazy.
I just like being able to go to the supermarket and not have people just push in front of you to get the last can of baked beans. Because as much as they want that can of baked beans, they want to stay away from you more.
And if they look like they're going to push in, all you have to do is go like that, and they're gone.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Right, I got to go because I have to put a small boy to bed. I will talk to Willow about the Unity thing and get back to you on that, Dan.
That'd be
All right?
amazing. Could you ping me over these slides and any links you want to share so I can put them in the show notes?
I put links into the chat for people who are still here, but I will send them and the slide deck to you via email separately.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Magic.
Cool.
Thank you very much, Mark. That was awesome.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, Mark.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers. All right. Oh, yeah, Dan, that was one thing when he's doing the introduction about Zoom. There's one thing which I heard, which might be useful, is that anything put in the chat and sent to a specific person at the end of the meeting, that's given to the organizer. So the organizer can see personal chats that have gone on.
I didn't realise
it was only a joke. It really was only a joke.
I think it's a few school kids and university people have been found out when they've been sending messages about the lecturer during the lecture.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Right, I think certain people are going to be banned from Dr. Oxford for life now.
It's been good knowing you guys. Thank you very much. What I did notice is worth adding as well. You know the alt space to unmute yourself temporarily? Not if you're in the chat window. If you're in the chat window, it just makes a lot of spaces in the chat window and doesn't unmute you at all.
Oh, fantastic. I feel I need to, with my new background, I need to move to the side slightly and just be over here.
Ooh, negative space. Nice.
No,
Without leaning it down. If you're doing that, and if I do that, I look like I'm about to pleasure Steve Ballmer, which is probably a bad thing. But you need to just slide to the side.
But that was one of the things that Scott Hansman talked about in his one, was about not having, like with work, with conversations, not having the camera directly in front of you. Because if you're at work, often you're turning to the side to talk to somebody. So he's talking about having the camera to the side, so you actually turn around to actually give that.
Oh, that's like corporate photos, isn't it? Where you turn around, you're like, hi. Yeah. Follow the rule of 2/3, right? So you sit yourself off to the side a little bit, so you're not in the middle, and then at an angle. I don't know. I can't do that. My camera's in a weird place anyway.
Yeah, I've got mine on my laptop down here, and then the screen I'm looking at is over here. So I'm always looking off to the wrong angle.
Yeah,
I've got mine on my phone, that's my innovation this week. My laptop camera is so shockingly annoying and bad. Dan will know this from a conversation I had with him last week, where I basically spent about an hour whinging about my camera. But I found an app that will let me use an iPhone as a webcam, which is perfect, really, because I'm really cheap and I don't want to buy a new expensive camera. So this does me proud, but it means I can kind of put it anywhere, which is quite nice.
Well, if you've got multiple cameras in Zoom, you can just use Alt-N to go between them.
Yes. I noticed that.
Yeah.
If I could show you the difference between my What is it? Alt N, you said, yeah?
Yeah.
That does literally nothing. Oh no, it does. It's got
Dark.
black. That's probably. Oh, there you go. So that's. If you look at my face there, that's my normal webcam.
Yeah.
That's the phone, which is.
He moved.
Well, because it's in a different place.
Hello, potato.
I tried mounting my phone inside my laptop lid, and it was having none of it. So yeah. It's all good.
What's the app?
All good. Oh, I can't change it back now. What's going on? There we go. That's better.
Matt, what was the app you were using?
For the camera?
Yeah.
It's called IV Cam. I'll let me post a link into the chat window. It's kind of weird. Their website is insanely slow at times, but it's once you're in, it's pretty good. It's directly linked through the USB cable rather than where is the chat window? Where is it? Should be somewhere. There we go. Cool. Right. It is this guy, IV Cam. So you basically, just install that on your phone and install it on your PC, Mac, whatever as well. I think it works on Mac as well. I haven't tried it on Mac. But the paid for version is like $9 or something like that. And if you don't get the paid for version, then you get like a watermark like up here somewhere in the screen that says IV Cam. But yeah, it's been reasonably good, to be honest. Quite happy with it.
So for $9, how much would you have got? Would you have got a better webcam anyway?
For $9, not a lot. I mean, this will do 1080 quite happily. So you're talking about 100 and something quid for a 1080 webcam versus $9 because I already have a 1080p webcam. It's just encased in some milled aluminium from like the guys in Apple. So yeah, sure. It's nice. Works. Simple.
It works really well, so it's quite impressive.
Yeah. Well, you know what my old cam was like from the last conversation we had.
Yeah, can you go back to being blurry, please?
Yeah, that's not a problem, Dan. If you just have several more of those cans of beer, I'll be very, very blurry.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the pub. Oh, yeah.
Shall I join you in the pub?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, the pub's gone. Oh, there it is. All right. There we go. Same pub.
Where's the? This was us in the pub last week.
Philip, have you seen the mug of the same style as your t-shirt there?
Who are you talking to?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, there's a cup you can get with cup of type
mug of tea.
Yeah, that's good.
Guys, I'm going to go. Thank you.
Cheers, Matt.
Sorry, I missed the first half completely.
Oh, well, it's been recorded, so I'll just edit it and shove it on YouTube at some point.
How many guitars have you got back there, Matt?
I've got 3.
Is that a Gibson at the back there?
There's I can't see which way I'm pointing. There's a Gibson Les Paul.
Yeah.
Fender Strat.
Yeah.
And a Gibson SG.
Nice.
That's my favourite one.
They're lovely.
But that's the one I play most, and that's the one I've had the longest. So.
Nice. Is that because the Strat is the most forgiving?
The Strat, you can do any type of music on the Strat. The other ones are metal. Well, that one's quite metal. And I've been doing, like in lockdown, I've been doing loads of videos of me learning hard guitar songs.
All right.
On Facebook. So like I've done the AC/DC stuff on that one.
Nice.
The heavier stuff on that one, but I don't know. It's just quite nice. I've had them years. I'm not allowed to buy anymore. My wife won't let me. But I've had all of them since before I met her. So equally, she can't sell any of them.
Yeah. Nice.
Are the videos published?
Huh?
Are the videos published?
They're on Facebook. If you find me on Facebook. Yeah.
What is it with coders and guitars? There seems to be.
I don't know. Music and maths, isn't it? Like they say. So perhaps that was the predecessor to music and coders.
Yeah, and just creating stuff, I think, as well, and learning as well.
Yeah. But I haven't played as much guitar as I've been playing in the last. Because I'm furloughed, right, and we're on shutdown. So I've got loads of time. Apart from now, I'm teaching my kids because my wife's still working, and they've got back to school this week. So I've had loads of time. So I've played a lot of guitar, more than I've played for like 20 years, I think. You're quite good.
I can't remember his name. This one on Twitter that I follow was saying that they've been furloughed, and everyone was replying back saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that," and everything. And I was thinking that sounds amazing.
Right, it's a bit weird. We're not allowed to work. I mean, they've kind of put us on shutdown that we have in the summer, but they've moved it to now because they're hoping they'll get a whole load of F1 races later in the year, and then they furloughed us sort of indefinitely, but we think it's to tie in with the shutdown because we're not working anyway. And so they've extended that another 2 weeks. So we've got at least another 2 weeks of that. And then there's rumours that might go to the end of May as well. So, but it's full pay where I am anyway. So it's all right. They're topping up whatever the government are paying. So
yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It depends where you work and how the furloughing works, whether you get because it's not just 80% of whatever you earn. It's 80%, or was it 2.5?
It's
before
80%
tax,
up
whichever
to
raises
2.5.
the biggest, the smallest one. Yeah.
Yeah, up to 2.5 before tax. So and then so they're topping up at work, everybody, to start with. Let's see how long it goes. But that's
really good though.
Yeah, it is good. It was a bit disconcerting, but then it's like you're not allowed to work. I mean, I wouldn't be allowed to work anyway on that stuff. But then I was like, oh, fine, I get a contract. I'll speak to one of you lot. And then they were like, yeah, you can't get a contract. You just got to literally do nothing. So I'm just tinkering, learning some stuff. And then I've got an old VW that I've been trying to cut apart and weld, but I'm never good at it. So.
Nice.
This is the downside of being a contractor. So it's kind of...
You have to keep working.
Well, if there's work available. So look, like, so my last main contract finished last week, and because I've got bits and bobs, I've not stopped working yet. So I'm quite fortunate in that sense. But it's kind of at some point I'm going to find, I've got nothing to do. But the company isn't bringing in any income, and you obviously don't get the furlough and that kind of thing. There's I could furlough myself, but then I wouldn't be able to do anything for any clients. That obviously doesn't work. And if I did furlough myself, it's 80% of PAYE, not gross, because obviously contractors take minimum PAYE and the rest dividends. So you only get 80% of the PAYE, which is nothing.
Yeah, and a lot of self-employed, isn't it done on their declared profits? So like no self-employed people usually make a lot of profit because they pay themselves it. It's dividend, don't they? So they're not going to get a lot out of that either.
Exactly. Well, most I don't know about self-employed, but people that go through their own limited company, like contractors, and most of them take the national insurance threshold, but not more than that. So I think that's about $8,000 or something, and then the rest is dividends. Because even though dividends is now banded, if you go over the national insurance threshold, then the company's paying national insurance and you're personally paying national insurance. So you're effectively paying like 13-14% twice for national insurance. So that's why they have that as the limit. And then take the rest as dividends. It used to be much more beneficial when dividends wasn't taxed at all, but now they've banded it. So it's kind of, there's less of a benefit for that, but then you've got this national insurance benefit. But unless this happens, so you can't take 80% of the whole thing.
That's really hard. Yeah. Hopefully, there's a lot of people wanting coders, right?
Yeah, hopefully. I think also because everyone's working remotely now, everyone's forced to work remotely. Then, whilst there's a lot less local work available for obvious reasons, hopefully, because I can work anywhere within the time zone just remotely. Yeah. Hopefully that then opens up a lot more opportunities as well.
It doesn't that also mean that other people from other areas can apply that? So you've got everybody's applying for every job now.
Yes.
In the case, so
yeah. So that I guess there's decent paid roles that are going to be like really jumped on. So you've got lots more competition, I guess. So it's kind of I'll just have to because of even though my main contract ended last week because I've been doing bits for other clients. So I've not really had any spare time to properly start looking. So I'll find out soon how bad it is, but we'll have to play it by ear. Luckily, I've got enough in the company to just carry on taking a salary for a few months. So I'm not desperate or anything, but I just have to see how things go.
I mean, you're not working with Tim then now?
No. So is Tim still here?
I don't know. He was earlier. He was still on. There he is.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not looking for work as well.
Yeah, I don't know how well announced that is. What's going on? You're very quiet, Tim. It's very.
Well, not me, am I?
No, we can hear you, but it's just very, very muffled and quiet.
It's like you've stored your microphone inside a pillow. Tim.
Yeah, it's just a microphone. So. Wait, that's stupid.
Ingredient.
Hello. Oh, this is brilliant. This is better than the pub.
I bet you can't get working.
Can you get it there? Can you get it there?
Is anyone?
Nice, Matt.
That's a good one, Matt.
Well, mate, he knows all about it. They've all seen the video of Trump with the accordion.
Yeah.
I search up Donald Trump mini accordion, and someone's just gone to a lot of effort to get every video they can find of Donald Trump doing this, and just accordion. It's genius. Matt, you've got loads of time to look this kind of stuff up now. So. What a crazy crap can I find for back then?
I need to take a screen grab of this. So everyone say cheese.
Remove Donald first.
Wait. Let's get rid of Trump. Just a minute. We can't have Trump in the photo. He'll tweet about it.
Too late. Too late.
Too late. I'll go back to the coronavirus. That's cool.
I've got one of each. In fact, these grins aren't cheesy enough, right? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Say cheese.
Cheese.
There we go.
Awesome.
Cool. We got it.
I have.
I got a dash, but yeah, thanks for organising. Yeah, pretty good.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Cheers,
Stuart looks like he's a man with the most professional setup.
He must be recording a pluralsight course, I reckon.
I can say. Yeah.
I think everyone's trying to do that right now, aren't they?
If you had to do it, then what would you do it on?
What would I do on? I don't know, because I was thinking about this, and everything.
I would imagine it would be Kubernetes, Dan.
Everything's been done.
Has it though?
Well,
on LinkPad, I think.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good one. And then claim royalties for sales from it as well. So I can take.
Could you do one on running LinkPad in Kubernetes? Is that a thing?
Well, potentially. If LinkPad goes across platform, we can do it on. We can do it on Linux ones, and we can now run Windows containers. So I can see what happens. But I don't know. To be honest, I look at the work that goes into them. Like I know Steve Gordon's done quite a few, and the amount of prep time he spends on it. I like the idea of doing one, but in reality, I think it's kind of I would get really bored quite quickly with it. Because I think it would be very repetitive, just re-recording the same bits and doing planning and stuff. Well, one day I might think about it. Has anyone else thought about doing something like that? No.
Not a chance.
You're going to do a yoga one then, Dan. That's it. Yoga for coders.
We're talking Jaeger or
Corona. Apparently, there's loads of money in online courses. Apparently, because
do you do like a 6-hour course of just drinking Jaegers? I'd watch that to the end. I reckon.
I'd fast forward.
Oh man, that'd be good.
What do you get 1.5?
I think I'm gonna have to shoot fairly soon. I'll stay for a few more minutes, but I'm probably gonna have to shoot in a bit. I'm probably keeping the entire household awake.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to scoot in a bit. There's a bottle of wine that needs to be finished downstairs.
Same here.
You know one else shaved their head on lockdown like me?
What's that?
Am I the only one who shaved their head on lockdown?
Well, this is to be honest, I've been because my hair's getting like really long now and I can't cut it. I've been very tempted, but because I'm potentially might be having interviews soonish with contracting stuff with remote interviews, I thought maybe after I find a contract.
But could you not use like the Facebook augmented reality to give yourself a haircut for the interview?
Maybe.
You get to switch to Mickey Mouse ears halfway through. Amazing.
I was thinking like if you're in a remote interview and you start changing the background to like beer or Trump or something, whether that would go down well.
Oh, that's a nice idea. Could do that. And you want to change the background to their corporate logo.
Philip, I like your background. That's awesome.
I think the beer and the Trump thing would be more fun from the interviewer than the interviewee. So next time you're interviewing somebody, you got to put the beer or the Trump one.
Yeah, that's it. That's the way it works.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to scoot.
Me too.
I think that's a bit done. Thank you very much.
Good time off.
Thanks, Dan.
It's been emotional, guys.
Thanks yeah. Good stuff.
Stay indoors.
Cheers, guys.
Then I'll just close the meeting down.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.